Spring training baseball under the lights tonight in Goodyear, Arizona. The spring training home of the Indians and the Reds. And tonight the Dodgers get the Cleveland Indians for the second time this spring. And we say welcome inside. With Oral Hershiser, I'm Joe Davis. Alana Rizzo joins us in just a moment. Oral, we get the pleasure of seeing Clayton Kershaw take the ball again tonight. Three-time Cy Young Award winners, finished in the top 5 consecutive years. The numbers are good again this spring. So what is it that he's working on as spring winds down?
He's getting ready for April. In March, you know, you have a few outings, but his April has been kind of rough. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. And you know what? With his awards and what he does and ERA titles, he knows how to finish. But I think he's looking forward to these couple outings, getting in ready for April start on April 4th to really get off to a fast start and maybe have another Cy Young year.
His last outing this spring came on Saturday against Chris Sale. Another good matchup for him tonight. Trevor Bauer goes for the Indians, a really interesting guy whose story we'll dive into as this night goes on. It's the Dodgers and the Indians on a beautiful night in Arizona on the other side of this break. Down from Glendale, Dodgers ready to go here in Goodyear, ready to take on the Indians as we check in for the first time tonight with Alana Rizzo.
All right, Joe, thanks very much. Unfortunately, another injury to report. Howie Kendrick, originally supposed to lead off in this game and play second base, was a late scratch. Instead, Elian Herrera is at second base, and he is batting eighth. As far as Kendrick is concerned, he's dealing with left calf tightness. He is day-to-day. Yasmani Grandal was supposed to be behind the plate today, catching Clayton Kershaw. However, he is still dealing with that right forearm soreness. He did have an MRI. It didn't show anything major. Dave Roberts saying that optimistically he won't play in a game until Monday. Andre Ethier back with his teammates today to address the issue for the first time. Said he's certainly frustrated. He will not be allowed to put any weight on that right leg for about 6 weeks, guys.
Man, how about like a piece of good news, and that Corey Seager had some ABs in a minor league game today, and he'll try and continue forward tomorrow, because lately it seems like there hasn't been much good news on the injury front. Jock Peterson will bat out of the leadoff spot that Howie Kendrick was in before he was scratched. Puig's behind him. Turner and Gonzalez in spots that starting to feel like we might see them throughout the season. Van Slyke and Ellis doing the catching. Hernandez, Herrera, and Thompson round out Dave Roberts' lineup that will try to get their hits against Trevor Bauer. Oral.
#1 draft pick back in 2011, a UCLA Bruin, a young man who's had a lot of potential and a lot of eyes on him. Had a decent year last year. He's got to avoid the walks and the home runs. He's going to come at you with that fastball around 93. His best pitch, his most effective pitch, is his slider, but he only throws it about 11% of the time. He's got that herky-jerky motion, and he's kind of quirky out there.
Yeah, well, the slider and the fastball you mentioned, those are 2 of the 7 or 8 different pitches that'll throw. And he goes with a fastball that hits the top of the zone for strike 1 to Jock Peterson.
Jock slipped into the leadoff hole, a place that maybe Dave Roberts will try to avoid with him as he goes through these swing changes and kind of the microscope from the bad second half last year.
Huh.
He just slipped.
Is that the herky-jerky delivery you're talking about?
That's about as herky-jerky as you get without delivering the ball, but the back foot slipped. And a lot of times, young fellas, you want to kick out that dirt in front of the rubber about maybe a 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, so that your spike can hook in there.
Another fastball, this one up, it's 1-1. And then the required stare down of the pitcher's rubber after you stumble.
It was its fault. It's not my fault. That was slightly embarrassing, but it can't be my fault.
He missed his spot, but got a strike. And it's 1-2 on Jock Peterson, who has hit out of the leadoff spot a few times so far this spring, and of course was there for much of his rookie season last year. Jimmy Rollins to begin the year. Then he moved into the spot late April and hits a curveball in the air to right to Colin Cowgill for the first out of the game. Cowgill, part of this defense that is full of new players for the Indians. The entire outfield in their first season in Indians uniform. So is Juan Uribe at third. Francisco Lindor, one of the bright young players in the entire game. He finished runner-up to Carlos Correa for American League Rookie of the Year last year. There's old friend Juan Uribe.
A familiar face and a real good sign, I think, for the Cleveland Indians. They're trying to take a run at the wild card there on the American League side.
Yasiel Puig takes strike 1. And above 300 this spring with a home run and 5 batted in. 0-2.
You can see that Trevor Bauer has not thrown a fastball down around the knees yet. It's either been waist high or shoulder high, and that's been his predicament here in the big leagues. Is that ball used to get by the college player who's had to learn to pitch down more at the big league level.
Breaking ball gets Puig here.
I think this curveball is really the pitch that he needs to learn, because he makes so many fastball up mistakes. The curveball is going to be a much better pitch for him, I think, than the slider if he can't get the fastball down.
Puig down on 3 pitches. 2 up, 2 down, and Justin Turner swings through a fastball, strike 1. It's that fastball you mentioned that he's been up with so far. You got to see him in the College World Series while he was at UCLA. Got away with it at that level, but that's not been the case as a major league pitcher.
You know, the guys have been more disciplined here, and he walks people up there. And then when he does bring it down for a slight strike, he just really doesn't have quite the velocity to get it by you up there all the time. He's, averages around 93 miles an hour. You need to be 95 plus usually.
Lost a tick on that velocity from 2014 to 2015, and it's been one of his focuses this spring, is ratcheting it back up.
Well, the freer and easier you are and the more you get ahead in the count, it's amazing how that freedom goes right down through your fingertips, and you can get that mile or 2 an hour back compared to trying to aim the ball.
1-2 to Turner.
He's got a little shorter takeaway, does Bauer, nowadays, too. When the ball comes out of his glove, he's trying to keep some angle there with his elbow, not kind of reach for the ground.
Turner shoots one off of the handle down the right field line. Cowgill can't get there, and that's trouble into the corner. In fact, bounces out of play for a ground rule double. So Justin Turner continues his solid start to this spring with a double.
Just kind of fights it off. Unfortunate for Justin and the Dodgers right here. This ball finds the line. Trevor Bauer on the mound is trying to wave it foul, and Justin Turner saying get down, and it did.
8 for 13 is Justin Turner this spring. So Adrian Gonzalez comes up. An RBI chance here in the first. His second game since returning from the World Baseball Classic action with Team Mexico. The qualifier over the weekend. Came back, played on Monday. Got Tuesday's game off. With the off day yesterday, back-to-back days for Adrian to rest.
Adrian wasn't too worried about leaving the Dodgers and going to join Team Mexico. Just really for him about seeing all different types of pitchers from different angles, the lefts, the rights, the sliders, the curveballs.
Sees a fastball here and hammers it to center. Rajai Davis reaches out and makes the play. Excellent range from Rajai Davis in center to take away extra bases from Adrian Gonzalez.
Rajai Davis with an excellent jump and one of the toughest catches that you will have as a center fielder when it's directly in front of you or directly over your head. Adrian thought he had something. Davis had another idea.
During the Lexus Command
Rajai Davis ended the top half of this inning with that great catch and leads off the bottom half. He's one of 6 new Indians out of these 9 in the lineup today. Lindor and Kipnis near the top. And Roberto Perez, the backup catcher, the only guys that were with the Indians a season ago. So they make several under-the-radar moves, changing that roster coming into this 2016 season. And Clayton Kershaw begins his night with a fastball inside.
The big fella going to try and stretch it out to 6 innings tonight. It's the time in spring training when your arm strength starts to match your body strength, your endurance starts to get up there, and I always felt like it was a good time to start really working on my breaking ball, because a curveball for me, a power curveball, takes more effort and strength than does a fastball. A fastball, your fingers are usually behind the ball or maybe just barely on the top. But with a curveball, and especially a power curveball, you've got to get to the front of the baseball. And that takes some more strength. It takes more flexibility and range of motion coming out of your shoulder because you have to hold on to the ball longer. But this is the time when those pitchers start bringing those around.
4 straight fastballs to start this outing. 2-2 on Davis.
And the fact that Clayton's not going to face Cleveland during the regular season, he can use his whole bag of tricks. He's not going to reveal any surprises or show anything.
There's the first breaking ball, and it'll result in the first out with Elian Herrera. He was added to this lineup late with Howie Kendrick's scratch. Moving into the second base spot. Teaming up the middle with Kike Hernandez, Turner and Gonzalez at the corners. And again, Trace Thompson gets the start in left field. Leads the team in at-bats during this spring. Getting a really good look at him in this Cactus League season.
Yeah, he's got a chance to really shine here, and with a fresh look for the whole new coaching staff and Dave Roberts, and being a White Sox last year. Well, you can see Clayton scolding himself already as we take a look at Trace out there in left field. He's got to enjoy every day he's out there right now, knowing that everybody's watching and he got a chance to make an impact.
Jason Kipnis turns around that fastball and sends Jock Peterson on the move. It bounces off the wall, and Kipnis with a double. One of the best second basemen in the game at the plate last season, and drills that one to give the Indians their first base runner.
The 2015 All-Star hits this one real well out over the plate. Jock playing in shallow with Clayton on the mound. He likes to have his outfielders play for the weaker hit balls. If he makes a mistake, somebody can hit it over your head, he takes it as his fault. Jock in there shallow, that's a sure double.
So a runner at second with one gone for Francisco Lindor. So take strike one. Finished runner-up to Carlos Correa in the American League for the Rookie of the Year last year. Got off to a slow start, but in the second half led the American League in batting average, and somehow managed to fly under the radar, largely because of all the hype surrounding Correa in Houston. Cracked his bat, but that'll drop in for a base hit. Thompson grabs it off the bounce and will throw into second on an RBI base hit from Lindor. The Indians lead 1-0.
Clayton got it in on him, but sometimes when you get it in on them up, they've got enough to get it over the infield, jam somebody and get it on the ground. That stays there, but this ball finds the outfield grass. Lindor picking up where he was last year. A lot of scouts are wondering, was he hitting out over his skis above 300 last year, because he was pretty much about a high 270 hitter in the minors.
Yeah, the thing with him was always his defense, and that if you got him to hit, you know, they figured in the majors 250 or better, that'd be gravy on top. But small sample size, relatively speaking, he's been way better than that. Mike Napoli, another first-year Indian, who has been red hot this spring. 455 in his 13 games of Cactus League action. The 0-1.
This young Indian team, which has an outstanding starting staff. Then you got guys like Juan Uribe, and you go with Napoli and then a Marlon Byrd. You've got some veterans around those young guys that can really help them through some of the tough days in summer when maybe they lose 3, 4, 5 games in a row, and can keep them on task. And playing for a very good manager in Terry Francona that can keep things light and keep a perspective in a clubhouse.
Had a winning record all 3 years under Francona. 81 and 80 last year, just barely.
I had a chance to work with Tito on Sunday Night Baseball for ESPN, and boy, what a joy to be around. You can see why he's a winning personality, and everybody around him plays for him, plays hard. He really gets it. It's a player's manager, but he's a guy that really tells you the truth about what's going on in your life and your baseball world. Players really enjoy playing for him.
Kershaw to Napoli with a 1-2. And got him. First punch out of the game for Kershaw, and 2 away here in the first. Up comes Marlon Byrd, who was just signed by the Indians last Friday to a minor league deal. Had been working out in the Los Angeles area up at Pierce College, Woodland Hills, and then got the call to come battle for a spot in the outfield, which outside of Michael Brantley is pretty much wide open for the Indians, and Brantley has been easing back from the offseason shoulder surgery.
Brantley's ahead of schedule. Most of the offseason predictions were maybe he'd miss a month, maybe a month and a half, but he's shooting for opening day still.
Yeah, made his Cactus League debut last Saturday. It was his non-throwing shoulder, but his front shoulder as a hitter, and that's the one that's going to take the brunt of the contact.
Sure does. It takes most of the stress, and that's the weakest part of the shoulder muscle there, moving forward to stabilize. The hammer. 159 games for Clayton Kershaw over the last 5 seasons. In 81 of them, he either gave up 1 run or no runs. Over half. So to see that one spot by Cleveland in the first inning, if this was the regular season, most of the time, that's it.
Yeah. Working on Marlon Burr with a runner at first and 2 gone. And we'll check Lindor back to first. It's his 5th start this spring. 3 runs allowed in his 15 innings. Most recently, a no decision against the White Sox on Saturday. He brings a 1-1. And Bird swings through it. 1-2.
Bird got a curveball in the last pitch. Look like right there, he's guessing fastball and hoping for a strike because he was swinging as soon as the ball left Clayton's hand.
A.J. Ellis doing the catching tonight. Setting outside for this 1-2. Breaking ball rolled to third. Justin Turner to retire the side. Let the Indians get on the board with a double from Kipnis and a single from Lindor. 1-0 after 1 in Goodyear. Pretty split down the middle tonight between Dodger fans and Indian fans. They know they're on camera. One of them had a Yasiel Puig jersey on. 5, 6, and 7 for the Dodgers in this second. Scott Van Slyke ready to lead it off against Trevor Bauer. Gave up a 2-out double to Justin Turner in the first inning, but nothing more. First one to Van Slyke is a fastball strike. Well, after what was a really injury-riddled season last year, Van Slyke has put together a monster spring. Hitting .375. He's homered 3 times. And with the Andre Ethier injury, A role that was already starting to develop in left is coming into even clearer picture. You think it'll continue to be a straight platoon with Ian Crawford, or will he see more time as a result of Ethier being out?
I think you'll see a platoon, but I think, you know, if somebody starts to show themselves as the guy that belongs in there no matter who's pitching, I think Dave Roberts will lean towards that. The roster is so deep, and there are so many choices that they can make. And I know in talking to Dave, and you've been around him too, and he wants to keep people fresh and he wants to keep people engaged. And that means the guys that are looked upon as the bench players that night are going to get used.
And he shoots one inside of first, down into the right field corner. Van Slyke headed to second. Cowgill has a hard time digging it out. And Van Slyke, after a wide turn, anchors with a double to begin this second.
Picks on a high fastball, which Trevor Bauer has been going with, and just shoots it over there. It looks like the way Howie Kendrick lashes the ball down the right field line. And coming around first and heading into second, he was taking and being his own third base coach. And then when he finally got to second, he tried to pick it up, and he ended up missing second base right here. Getting held up anyway.
So here's A.J. Ellis. Taking a strike. And we're talking about the left field for the Dodgers. The numbers you see here are the number of starts for those guys in that spot last year. And Crawford, of course, dealt with injuries throughout the season. Trace Thompson starts that you see, those come as a member of the Chicago White Sox. He's another guy that's, you know, we talked about during the first inning, getting a good chance to show what he can do, making several starts consecutively in left. It's just a matter of what they want to go with for that final roster spot. Bauer's 1-1 to Ellis. Strike two.
If you look at that list, of course, Andre Ethier is not available for 10 to 14 weeks. Trace Thompson could be a guy that I don't think they would put in the leadoff hole, but he could be out there in left field. Of all those candidates for left field, maybe Carl Crawford's the only one you would lead off. So there might be a combination of how you make that decision. The matchup situation, whether you need the leadoff hitter that night or not.
Ellis down on strikes. Second punch out of the night for Trevor Bauer. One away in the second.
Kind of an odd swing for AJ, but he was trying to do the job and get Scott Van Slyke to third base. So he saw high strike, possibly it turned out to be the cutter, and he was swinging late to protect or get him over.
Kike Hernandez continues to get the starts most nights at short, with Corey Seager still working his way back, but making good progress from that minor knee injury. Played in a minor league game today as the DH, had 4 at-bats. Said he felt a little bit rusty, didn't have a hit, but you expect that after missing more than a week of game action. And he's expected to play 6 innings in the field tomorrow on the minor league side. Foul territory, Napoli with room.
Yeah, good for Corey to get back out there and not directly into a big league game. Almost impossible to simulate game speed, game adrenaline, and to build up through those minor league games before you get back into these big league games will be good for him.
We mentioned that Jock Peterson moved into the leadoff spot to plug that hole vacated by Howie Kendrick's late scratch. Elian Herrera, the guy who moves into the second baseman position with Kendrick's scratch, plays in his 20th game of the spring tonight. He's gotten some good run and has done some nice things for the Dodgers.
We're going to get a look at it with, you know, almost 2 weeks to go, but you know, you're in that 10, 11, 12 day period towards opening day, and they're going to start to try and get the everyday lineup, or what they foresee as one of the lineups that'll be used the majority of the time. They're going to try and get those guys to play together. Maybe we get an idea of what Dave Roberts is thinking about for a batting order.
It's just been hard with the injuries. You know, it seems like it's somebody different each day. You get somebody healthy, and then it's another name that deals with something. 2-1.
Well, when everybody was healthy, or at least when Andre Ethier was healthy, you know, we saw and watched and heard about the tinkering of the lineup, putting Andre, you know, leading off. But everybody hasn't been healthy, so they really haven't been able to tinker with the lineup or to see how pieces kind of fit together or how guys enjoy hitting in front or behind each other. So now it's really been at what is the necessity.
Herrera lines out to Uribe at third to bring an end to the second inning. Dodgers waste a leadoff double from Van Slyke. Middle 2, 1-0. Kershaw back to the bump in a moment.
No problem so far, so that's nice. You know, mentally it's been great because there has been no pain. You know, it'd probably be a little more frustrating if there was a little pain. If I had any setbacks, that would kind of mess with you mentally. So far it's been good on both sides, physically and mentally.
21-year-old Corey Seager getting close to coming back as Juan Uribe pounces on the first pitch and drives one into the gap for extra bases against Kershaw. Uribe with his 5th hit and his first 13 Indian at-bats this spring.
Chuck gave a run at it and had a good route at it. Juan just picks on the first straight one he sees. Chuck's like, oh, maybe I go for the dive, but no, don't take the pain right now, and I'm not going to catch it anyway. Yasiel did a good job backing him up.
Just so often we see against guys like Clayton Kershaw that, and Nomar talks about this, hitters know that oftentimes the best pitch you're going to see is going to be that first one. Highest percentage of the time you're going to see a fastball is going to be the first pitch of the AB. And Uribe, a veteran, went after it, as does Joey Butler. In between hop, Turner throws him out. Justin Turner with a nice defensive play for the first out of the inning. Colin Cowgill comes up for the first time. Yet another new member of this Indian squad. He's fighting to make the roster as one of the outfielders. It is a pretty crowded bunch. You can't imagine that Cowgill was real happy when he saw Marlon Byrd walk through the door last week after Cowgill started the spring with the team. And in the hands, fouled back, strike one.
The late signing really kind of shows you that the Indians are a little bit more serious about this year than just like watching this team grow. That they think they've got a shot. And with their starting pitching, they do. You're talking about Kluber and Carrasco and Salazar, and Trevor Bauer gets his act together and comes up to some of the potential that people think he has. He could be 4 deep really quick.
Fly ball to center. Drifted its way towards right and carrying over the head of Peterson and off of the wall. That thing just kept on going in that Arizona air, and Uribe will score. Into third goes Cowgill. It's 2-0. Like Peterson just started to drift towards the gap, and then it took off on him. Neither he nor Puig could catch up to it.
There's some air up there that he's not feeling, because even when he chased down the gapper by Uribe, he kind of undershot it. And this one, he definitely undershoots with the route. When your route ends up looking like a J, you know you didn't go to the right spot. And that ball was up high enough for him to get under it. It's just that he ran to the wrong spot, and that air took it out there into that right center gap.
Infield comes in for the 9-hitter Roberto Perez with a runner at third and one gone. Good stop from A.J. Ellis. It's 1-0. Perez making the start for Yan Gomes, who has caught a bit of an illness. It's been going around the clubhouse for the Indians the last week or so. And they sent Gomes home yesterday with that sickness. Gets another night off tonight. I have what you have. You've been sick the last week or so.
Yeah, but I'm not day to day. I'm in there. If there's a game, if you need me, I'm here.
I need you.
All right. But there is something going around. Yeah. I don't know what it is.
My friend Charlie Steiner's been dealing with something too.
I got on a Z-Pack from the docs, and that helped kick it a little bit.
You doing all the vitamin C and all that too?
Much as I can.
Yeah.
I'm not good with kale.
No, I'm not a big kale guy either. That's supposed to help your cold?
I don't know. It just seems like it's on every menu now.
Superfood, I hear.
There'll be another one next year.
He attacks a 3-0 pitch and hooks one down the line, but foul. Perez ambushes a 3-0 from Kershaw.
Maybe Perez has been eating some kale.
Yeah. Alana, have you eaten kale too?
Well, I actually love kale, but that's beside the point. Andre Ethier came into the locker room or the clubhouse earlier today when he was talking to the media, and he said, you know what, I'm even trying to eat kale and chrysanthemum because I heard that they make your bones stronger. He's like, I'm doing everything I can to get back on the field.
That's awesome.
I have a machine that I use that helps bone density.
Yeah. I drink milk. And Kershaw walks the 9-hitter Perez. They're at the corners with one away. First walk of the night issued by Clayton. And back to the top it goes, Rajay Davis. Made a fantastic catch over the shoulder in center tonight to end the first inning. And then popped out to short right his first time up. The 35-year-old signed a one-year deal with a 6th different team in his 11 big league seasons. With the Tigers the last couple of years, before that with the Blue Jays. And waits on this 1-0 from Clayton Kershaw. Some time with the Pirates, with the Giants, with the A's. A lot of times he's been a utility outfielder, part of a platoon, but he's a great clubhouse guy. And he terrorized the Indians while he was with the Tigers the last 2 years. Terry Francona said, I just hated him the last 2 seasons, so might as well go out and make him part of our team. Crack bat bounce at a third. Turner comes home with it. They've got Cowgill hung up. Get the practice. The run down, and Kershaw dives after Cowgill to get him for the second out.
It's nice to get the out. It's even nicer that Clayton Kershaw gets up.
Yeah.
You really would love to get that run down finish before the pitcher has to handle the ball. So you get the ball, so the runner's getting back towards third, and that one there, AJ, that Justin, is where it kind of breaks down as far as eliminating all the throws. You'd like the out to be right where Clayton got it, but you'd rather he didn't have to dive to record a spring training out.
5-2-5-1. Deep breath. So first and second with 2 away for Jason Kipnis as Davis reaches on the fielder's choice. Kipnis hammered a double his first time and came in to score the game's first run. Career year last year for Jason Kipnis. Was an all-star for the second time. He was the #1 second baseman in baseball in many categories. You heard all about what Dee Gordon did leading the National League in hits, but as far as on base percentage, the bottom line and how often he's getting on, he was way ahead of what Dee Gordon did even among second basemen. After what was the worst season of his career in 2014, where he dealt with an oblique injury pretty much all year. (2-0). 3 balls and no strikes. Kershaw struggling some with control in this second inning.
A little bit. I think trying to pitch him tough, hit your spots, and you remember that you got that double. I don't think there's a left-handed hitter in baseball that intimidates Clayton Kershaw, but Kipnis has a nice approach against him here tonight.
And a 4-pitch walk. Second walk of the frame. Kershaw came into the game this spring having walked only 3 in Cactus League action in his first 4 starts. Francisco Lindor with the bases loaded and a chance to bust it open early for the Indians.
They got him on an inside fastball that he fisted and broke his bat in the first at bat. See if they go right back in there, but deeper.
That's where Ellis sets. That's where they go. Ball 1.
The thought there was if he's going to swing at the inside fastball, we're going to throw him something that looks like one and have the slider go down and under. He just didn't bite.
Fastball away on the corner, 1-1.
Clayton just trying to find those lanes right now with the couple walks this inning. Rick Honeycutt talks about getting in your lane. That means the inside lane and the outside lane. You definitely don't want to go to 3-1, so this is in your mind, what's my best pitch that I can throw for a strike right here?
Two and 2.
Lindor thought he's got to throw strike 2, and he was guessing. Started a little early, didn't really read it as a strike or a ball. He just said, I can see the ball and it's near the middle of the plate. I'm going for it.
More balls than strikes in this inning, which is now 20 pitches long for Kershaw. But a chance to get out of it with minimal damage done. A run in the bank, bases loaded, 2 gone here in the second. And a 2-2 to Lindor. Breaking ball got him and got him out of this jam. So the Indians do get 1 on Cowgill's triple, but Kershaw goes to the curve to strand the bases loaded in a 2-0 game.
transmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of the game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the doctor.
Well, Kershaw had to labor through that second inning some, walked a pair. The Indians loaded the bases against him, but he gives up just one. We move on to the third. In Goodyear, about a 20-minute drive from the Dodgers spring training complex in Glendale, assuming you hit the traffic at the right time. Do you have any trouble getting in here?
No trouble at all.
Huh?
I barely beat you, Rook.
Yeah. No, you were up here ready to go.
My wife dropped me off. That's why I was on time.
Right. Some of us have to drive ourselves. Some of us don't have the personal drivers. Trace Thompson.
I don't think she'll appreciate that title.
1 ball and 1 strike on the Dodgers 9-hitter tonight. Who's made more at-bats in big league action this spring than any other Dodger. This is his 50th at-bat of Cactus League action. The numbers not pretty, but Dave Roberts has continued to say he's liked Trace's at-bats, loves his athleticism, thinks he's hitting into some bad luck. Cracks one to third. Uribe makes the play.
Juan's in the wrong uniform to enjoy that play, but that's what we are used to when he was wearing Dodger blue. He's got a flair, and he can really play third base. The body doesn't look like you should have that kind of athleticism and be that nimble, but he is.
So Thompson, the first out of the inning. Second trip through the order now begins with Jock Peterson. He'll fly to right his first time up. And the leadoff spot with Howie Kendrick. If you're just joining us, as a late scratch, day-to-day with a calf strain. It's 1-1.
Nasty changeup right there from Trevor Bauer. With his herky-jerky motion, if he can perfect that pitch, that would be quite a weapon.
Through 7 different pitches last year to Trevor Bauer, at least at the tracking systems they have in ballparks marked. Fastball, curveball, slider, sinker, change, split, cutter, and could distinguish between the 7. The computers could. There's a 1-2. Peterson tried to lay off, but went around. Third punch out for Trevor Bauer, and 2 gone in this third inning.
The key for Trevor Bauer will be developing some command on a few of those 7 pitches that he can throw. To be able to know when you can hit a corner and when you can throw it just off the corner with 2 or 3 is more important than throwing a 7 that you're not sure where they're going.
Had the highest walk rate in the majors last year. And a curveball is lined to deep center. Rajai Davis going back, won't make a play on this one. Gets a true bounce, has a shot at second. Puig slides into the tag, and Lindor drops it on him. Not sure why Ociel slid on the outfield side of the bag, but he made life easier on Lindor. Rajai Davis with a couple of nice defensive plays in this game. rising rocket off of the wall in center, but gets thrown out at second.
Rajat Davis makes a great job on the carom off the wall. An accurate throw, and Yasiel should have been in there easy. He gets to the inside part of the bag instead of the outfield side. He gets his foot down to the bag instead of having it in the air. And remember last year, we've seen him plenty of times where he has trouble sliding and not looking like he's going to get hurt. And I know they're working on that. And I'm sure the spikes are in the air not to injure somebody, but just to make sure for himself that as he gets used to sliding feet first, he doesn't hurt himself.
Middle third of the Indians order. Mike Napoli behind a Kershaw fastball. Goes to it again. Strike two. Napoli struck out his first time. That's one of 2 Ks for Kershaw tonight. He's walked 2 as well. And an 0-2. 3 straight fastballs. This one just misses. 1-2.
Very rarely do you not see Clayton Kershaw and A.J. Ellis on the same page, but you're playing a team they're not going to play during the year. It's also spring training, and Clayton might have a few things he wants to work on, which would not be the typical sequence that they might want to put a right-handed power hitter away that likes the ball down. Clayton wanted to pull the trigger on a slider. A.J. had another idea, but not like they are not on the same page. These two are like brothers.
The only more frequent batteries since 2012 when Ellis moved into a significant role. Bumgarner and Posey, San Francisco. Marlon Byrd looks at strike one. First caught Kershaw back in Kershaw's Double-A debut in Jacksonville.
Speaking of Bumgarner, he and Arrieta are going toe-to-toe.
Yeah.
Cubs and Giants.
We will, barring something unforeseen, get our first Kershaw-Bumgarner meeting of 2016 on the opening Saturday of the season in San Francisco. The third game of a 4-game set. And in the 6th game of the season opening 7-game trip that goes through San Diego and then San Francisco. Kershaw to Byrd with a 3-1. Fastball got into the hands, floated over first and down for a base hit. Adrian Gonzalez runs it down, throws late. But another pitch that Kershaw executed but finds its way safely.
Maddening if you're the pitcher, and if you're the hitter, you say, I'll take it. I've hit line drives right at people for outs, so I'll take my bloopers when I get him. Francisco Lindor had a hit like that, got him an RBI earlier. Blooped one into left.
Saw a bunch of those last time Kershaw pitched Saturday against Chicago.
Yeah. Clayton's, I'm sure, hoping they get them all out of their system down here in spring.
Yeah. On Uribe, doubled and scored last inning. Went after the first pitch. Takes this one, and it's a strike. The former Dodger, 2011 through 2015, had 2 bad injury-plagued years and then 2 really good years. Is off a curve, and it's 1-1. Was dealt last year. Played in 46 games with the Braves. Played in 44 games with the Mets. And now in his first season with the Indians. His 7th team in his 16 years as a big leaguer. Waits on this 1-1. Fastball fouled off, 1-2.
Absolutely great guy in the clubhouse, and as you can see, when he was a Dodger, the 260 you'll take, the 28 home runs, you see the RBIs. He always had a flair for dramatic as far as big RBIs, and he can really pick it down there at third base. And Joe, he can really dress.
Yeah,
he's really good with an unlit cigar and a cool outfit.
Down on strikes. Kershaw got him with that back foot slider for his 4th K. 2 out. So now that he's no longer on the team charter, does that make you the best dressed one?
Oh, no. Got some pretty good, well-dressed guys. I don't know what the dress code's going to be yet with the new manager, but I'm sure we'll see. We'll have to get that to you so you know whether to pack your Kerry blue sport coat or your full ensemble.
Yeah, don't treat me like a rookie and tell me the wrong thing, and then I show up wearing.
I'm going to drop
mismatch.
I'm dropping the whole rookie thing as soon as the regular season starts.
All right.
Yeah,
you don't have to work too hard.
Your resume is too deep to call you rook all year.
Rules are rules, Oral. I mean, if you got to call me rookie, then
I'm going to have to run that by Nomar.
Okay, fair enough. Do we need a unanimous decision, or?
No, I think a split decision might still call you rook.
Okay. And you officially, your vote is to drop it once spring's over, huh?
That was my classy remark publicly, but I don't know. I have to think about what I would do privately.
0-2 on Joey Butler.
I'll tell Libby and you tomorrow night at dinner with Dana.
Okay.
Because Mr. Scully gets to do the game tomorrow, so we have the night off. So we should take the rook and his wife to dinner and make them pay.
Sounds about right. Joey Butler was a rookie last year at 29 years old. He had played in a handful of games with Texas and with St. Louis in 2013 and 14, but then got his first chance at extended playing time with the Tampa Bay Rays at 276 in half a season. And his first year in Cleveland now. He waits on this 1-2. Big breaker got him, and Kershaw strikes out the side around the double from Bird that was blooped off of the handle. Clayton's best inning of the night takes us to the 4th in a 2-0 game. Jr. The $4 real deal. 4 items for just $4 at Carl's Jr. Back at Goodyear, sun is set on a 2-0 game with the Indians getting single runs in the first and in the second. The Dodgers bringing the meat of the order to the plate against Trevor Bauer here in the 4th. Joe Davis, Oral Hershiser, Alana Rizzo. And a beautiful night. Temperatures dropped into the low 70s, supposed to get down to the high 60s by the end of the game tonight. As Justin Turner takes ball 1.
This part of the order, no runs on the board, 7 losses. I got to believe Dave Roberts wants to win. I think you want to play this game to win. You want to start getting in the habit of winning. You got your ace on the mound. He's kind of here and there. And I know the spring training games mean nothing, but there's a feeling that can start to build when you get a few wins and start feeling good about yourselves, especially with all the bad news we've had with the injuries.
Floated to center. Rajai Davis is there for the first out of the inning. Yeah, I mean, I know that spring training results don't matter, but it seems like you would reach a point where you'd start to at least think about it. On the other side, the Indians have won 5 in a row. Dodgers have now dropped 7 in a row after a 10-3 start to the spring. And it doesn't matter, bottom line, but mentally you'd think that, like you said, you kind of just like to turn the tide here and feel what it's like to win again, even if it doesn't matter.
Hey, if you're out in the driveway in a pickup game with your brother, you'd like to win every once in a while, even though you're both getting ready for your other seasons where you play on separate teams. But winning is fun. Playing a game is fun. Andre Ethier did a nice interview with Alana Rizzo, and you could just hear in his voice how he's going to miss playing.
Yeah.
And playing is fun. And it's even more fun when you win.
Two balls and a strike on Adrian Gonzalez. Flied out to the wall and center his first time. Grounds one to Lindor, who was positioned perfectly. 2 up, 2 down. Well, the Dodgers have dropped 7 in a row, but Alana, Adrian had some winning over the weekend, huh?
Well, he really did in the World Baseball Classic qualifier. Before he left, I said, do you want to go and play even more because your brother is the manager? He said, no, we need to get Mexico into the World Baseball Classic. And did they ever? A 3-0 record, guys. They outscored their opponents 25-2. Gonzalez had a great series, 2 for 6 with 6 walks when he came back. I said, how was it? He said, a blast.
And they went through the baseball version of the bracket of death that included Nicaragua and Czech Republic. Scott Van Slyke takes ball 1.
That's good humor, Rook. That's pretty good. I might pay for dinner tomorrow night now.
All right.
That was very good.
No more jokes tonight. I'm going to go out on top.
I like that.
Yeah.
Don't worry, you're going to have plenty of time in this game.
Here's a 2-0. And it spins outside on Van Slyke, who doubled his first time. One of 3 hits against Trevor Bauer tonight. Three-0 green light, strike 1.
I think Scott Van Slyke, he had, mid 250s last year off of lefties and then down around 225 off of righties. So these are audition at bats from a right-handed thrower.
First walk they've earned against Bauer tonight. Van Slyke has reached both times. And it's A.J. Ellis with 2 away. It was a strikeout in his first at-bat, but Orel, as you mentioned, he was trying to do his job, move the runner over after Van Slyke had doubled. It's the kind of play you've come to expect from this guy over the course of his time in the majors. Bounces one over the mound. Bauer makes a nice play on it and retires the side. 2-out walk, but no damage done. In a 2-0 game in Goodyear.
4th inning of work. Down 2-0 here in Goodyear. Joined now by Turner Ward, the hitting coach for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And Turner, thanks for taking a couple minutes to be with us. I want to brag on a guy that kind of has the similar name, Justin Turner. Another double today. That's 5 in spring training. What have you seen from him, particularly at the plate?
Well, I mean, of course, you can see he's relaxed, has a really good path to the ball going right now. And, you know, he's a professional hitter. So when you kind of put that kind of combination, he knows what he wants to do at the plate, and he's getting the barrel to the ball.
Originally, Howie Kendrick was supposed to lead off in this ball game, a late scratch with that left calf tightness. He's day-to-day. But when you lose Howie out of your lineup, what kind of hole does that create for this club?
Well, I mean, anybody who watches Howie, you know you're going to get a professional AB every single day. And so, of course, anytime he's out of the lineup, it's going to affect, you know, things. But, you know, the main thing right now is guys getting healthy. I mean, we had the bug on us a little bit, but, you know, trying to keep guys, making sure we're not pushing them through some things that they shouldn't be.
Leadoff double there in this one in the 4th inning. And I want to talk a little bit more about Jock and Yasiel, because when we met with you at the beginning of spring training, those were 2 guys in particular we wanted to know in terms of adjustments what was being done. Can you take me to what they've done this spring?
You mean with Jock?
Jock and with Yasiel.
Oh, no, you know, Yassi has been great. He's made some. The biggest thing with him was getting his approach back right. You know, when he first came over, you could see him driving the ball to right center and staying on the ball that way. And one thing that we wanted to do first of all was just kind of get him back to that side of the field and get his direction that way. And so he's just worked extremely hard trying to do that. He feels really good right now. You know, of course, you want to see results, and he has been having them. So it's kind of a win-win right there. You know, Jock is he's been working hard. He's made some adjustments, you know, over the off season and still trying to feel his way through. He's been swinging the bat well up to this point. Kind of been a little bit, you know, off here lately, but, you know, it's nothing that can't be worked out.
With Jock in particular, you want him to use a little bit more of the entire field?
Yeah, of course, and more about being more in a little body control and just kind of being more in control of his swing rather than just getting out of control. And I think that's kind of natural for a lot of young hitters. I mean, they get to their hitters count, they get big instead of just kind of staying within themselves. And
finally, for you, Andre Ethier out 10 to 14 weeks, a big blow to this club considering the year he had last year and the spring he's had so far. Just the thought about that vacancy.
Well, not only that, just his leadership. He's a guy that you can kind of depend on every day. His routine is unbelievable. His focus has just been great. His example of how he goes about his job. So you're not just losing a bat, you're losing a type of leader. So, but you know what? This is what this game's all about. It gives guys opportunity. So opportunity is there. So we get to see other guys out here and maybe they're going to get their opportunity to shine.
Next man in mentality. Thank you, Turner.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
That's great stuff, Alana. We appreciate Turner Ward's time. First-year hitting coach, one of many new faces on that Dodger field staff this year. 3 balls and a strike on Roberto Perez. 9-hitter for the Indians, walked his first time against Kershaw. Now the count goes full.
Turner Ward had to respect the moment he walked into the locker room. Not only reputation as a hitting coach, but his nice 12-year major league career. There's a lot of respect, a lot of energy among that new coaching staff. The players are really have a lot of respect for them and are seeing some results.
His playing career started with the Indians. Played with 6 different teams over those 12 seasons. Second time Kershaw has walked the 9-hitter, and you heard him shout as he let that ball go on his 3rd walk of the night.
Just a little off in his rhythm with some of these times where he's lost his command. Body a little quick maybe, and the hands not getting down and out in front. You got to really watch it when you're a coach, a new coach, and you're starting a relationship with a player like Turner Ward has and some of the other guys. Just you've got to make sure that your first few pieces of advice actually work. You don't want to lose somebody and just by quick observations and all of a sudden want to change. You got to watch and watch and watch for a long time before you start offering advice.
Rajay Davis fouls off the first one. Turner Ward, the 12th Dodgers hitting coach since the turn of the century. Replacing Mark McGwire, who we saw on Sunday. Now the bench coach with the San Diego Padres. Not Turner's first hitting coach gig, though. Last 2 years, he had that job in Arizona, and quietly, as a D-backs lineup that was one of the best in baseball.
I think there's 3 kinds of coaches in the world. There's the kind of coach that can tell you what you can do right. You know, keep your head down, get your glove down, do all the, you know, tell you. There's the one that tells you what you're doing wrong. Somebody knows a little bit more about the game. You're not doing this, you're not doing that. And then there's the master coach that can sit back and observe, and he can give you one piece of advice that'll fix 2, 3, 4 things all at once. And some people coach symptoms, and other people understand and can find the core of an issue. And that's the best coaches.
Kershaw again misses his spot. He and Ellis meet halfway.
I think that's the one piece of advice I give to fathers out there trying to coach baseball, or even coaches that are coaching baseball that might know deep down they don't know as well as they should, is to really let the player and you study to the point where you maybe can find a core issue of something that's going wrong, because you can really lose some kids by continually hammering them with negatives, and a lot of the time they're gonna fail an awful lot.
Some managerial background too, Turner Ward does in the minors. Won a couple of minor league championships. The Diamondbacks AA level in Mobile, Alabama. He was replaced there once he went to the big leagues to be a hitting coach. Was replaced there by the now Padres manager Andy Green. Two on, nobody out, and a 2-2 from Kershaw. Full count. Hasn't been as easy tonight as it often is for Kershaw, having to work. And no doubt working on things. Here's his payoff. Davis rolls it to short, could be 2. Hernandez to second, 1. Herrera's throw is late. Davis can really fly. They get the force. And they're at the corners with 1 out.
I like the actions from Kike Hernandez at shortstop right there. He charged that ball well, gave a nice little flip over there to Herrera. He made this into, if you don't have a guy that's flying, this is a double play ball that you can feel confident that Kike Hernandez, if he's over there and not Corey Seager, you're going to be able to make that play and turn that into a double play. You can get out of the inning with a man on third and 2 out, but with a fleet-footed hitter, you have no chance. But I love the mechanics right there.
Here's Kipnis. Yet to be retired tonight. Double and a walk. Strike 1. The guy that played his college ball in this area at Arizona State. It's a second-round pick of the Indians. Made his big league debut soon after he was drafted, less than 2 years following the time they took him. Been an everyday starter since 2012. You mentioned it earlier, 2-time All-Star over his first 5 years in the bigs.
This is a bat where Clayton Kershaw kind of make personal. Yeah, he's had a couple good at bats off of him.
Painted. 1-2.
This is the part you're going to really come to appreciate about Clayton Kershaw, Joe, watching him in every one of his outings. He's a battler. You know, you love it when he's taking the no-hitter into the 6th or 7th and actually throws a no-hitter, and those kind of games where he just flat out dominates. But you just don't see him melt down. He's so mentally tough. He's not that prima donna pitcher that if it's not perfect, you know, okay, I'll have another night and I'll give up on it. He doesn't give up on anything.
He pumps the 1-2 with Ellis setting outside, pops the mid and gets it. Battles his way to his 6th strikeout, and 2 away in the 4th.
He's been groping his way through this outing, giving up a couple scratch runs. He's in 1st and 3rd, 1-out situation with a guy who's swinging the bat really well and goes to the well with the fastball in the black after setting him up with the breaking ball. He'll go 7, give up 2. He'll go 8, give up 2, and you'll think it was the ugliest Clayton Kershaw outing, and that's just all he'll give up. He just works so hard at it. and can eliminate damage even on his weakest of nights.
And yet again, a chance to get out of an inning that looked like the Indians might put up a crooked number. Misses with the first one to Lindor. You mentioned his ability to battle into games. Over the last 4 years, he's gone 7+ in more than 70% of his starts. The 1-0. Strike one.
Yeah, I really believe that when he goes 7+, that's like almost like a complete game for me, and especially the generation before, because the stands are so much closer. So a foul ball in the first 6 to 10 rows nowadays is a strike instead of an out. The ball is harder. The strike zone is smaller. The information that people have on pitchers now is more and more. So it's harder to get an out, harder to get a strike. And I really believe we're almost playing like extra inning games almost every night now at the big league level compared to the way they were played 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Davis swiped second. That's interesting. So you think there's plenty more to it than just the way that we're, relatively speaking, kind of babying pitchers' arms now?
Yeah,
I know that's a big part of it. But
yeah, you know, well, since 1969, of course, they lowered the mound.
Yeah.
And then the strike zone has definitely gotten smaller. The ball has definitely gotten smaller and harder. I mean, the players can nickname him like 100 Titleists that compared to when I broke in and give up a line drive hit, there was a flat spot on the ball almost. You know, now you can have a ball make it through all of a batting practice where it gets hit 6, 7 times but never leaves the ballpark, and it's coming back behind second base into the bucket, coming back into the BP pitcher. That ball will be just as round that it got scorched 7 times in batting practice than it would be if it was a pearl out of the box.
And so you're saying advantage hitter?
Advantage hitter.
Yeah.
And the bats, the technology of how they make the bats now, they're much harder. But mainly the strike zone and the configuration of the field, they're taking away a foul territory. And so I really believe if you watch the game, you know, there's probably 3 to 6 outs, you know, at least, that used to be strikes. Foul ball in the first 6 rows. Warning track fly ball is not a warning track fly ball. The ball's a little harder. It leaves the ballpark. That guy right there, Greg Maddux, sitting on a Dodger bench, who helps out an awful lot now, he would tell you about it.
Good stop from A.J. Ellis. Cowgill anchored at third. There's Greg Maddux. Special assistant. He'll bounce around during the regular season. Spent a lot of time visiting minor league affiliates, and will drop in now and then with the big league club. Invaluable having him around. Kershaw with a payoff to Lindor. Got him. Ellis will throw down to complete the inning. Kershaw, like you said, battling his way through this one to the tune of 7 strikeouts, including 5 of the last 6 outs that he's recorded. second for the Indians. Dodgers still searching for their first run of the night. Dodger fans, mark a calendar for Wednesday, April 13th, when the Dodgers play the Diamondbacks. First 40,000 fans will receive an adult hooded sweatshirt presented by Bank of America. Visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Bottom third of the order for the Dodgers, coming up against Trevor Bauer, who has 3 strikeouts tonight. He's walked 1 and scattered 3 hits. Kike Hernandez, strike 1. Bauer entering his 5th season with big league time. His 3rd year as a full-time member of the Cleveland rotation. Made his debut here for the Diamondbacks with a handful of games in 12, and then was traded in a big deal. Had 9 players involved in it. 3-team deal with Cincinnati and Arizona. The key piece to it was Shin-Soo Choo, going from the Indians to the Reds.
He's really avoided the walk, which has hurt him tonight. Only 1 walk and the 3 strikeouts, and the home run ball is the other Achilles heel for him. But when you're walking people, that means you're falling behind an account. You're falling behind the count, you're in hitters counts. And when your fastball mistakes are up, those are home run balls. It's pretty easy for him and for the Indians to figure out how to get better. It's not subtle.
Full count on Hernandez. He's really into the mechanics of pitching and using advanced data. Studying beyond just studying video of his outings. He dives into the science of the stuff and walks Hernandez to begin this inning. You wonder, if there's a point where you look so much into that stuff that it becomes paralysis by analysis. You like that guys are interested in the information available to them, but can there be too much?
Well, you start concentrating maybe on the wrong things, because that kind of analysis, I would analyze, can I repeat my leg kick? Can I repeat my balance over the rubber? Can I repeat, my release point out front? That's where being able to repeat your body will actually then make the ball go in the right place.
He installed a TrackMan system in his house during the offseason. The units that are installed at all the major league parks that give us our spin rate, exit velocity, all the next level sabermetric categories. Got one installed in his house.
That's a big investment.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I need to know my spin rate if my ball is 1.5 feet too high.
Right.
I want to know the location and the movement, and then I'll work back to my mechanics and say, I must be repeating those. That's where I've got to be.
Leon Herrera tugs that one foul. Yeah, he installed it so he could see how differing grips on the ball and differences in his delivery, how those were affecting spin rate.
So let's say I throw 5 pitches low and away, basically in the correct area where I want them. Either they're strikes or they're balls, but they're right in that within the width of a catcher's glove or catcher's glove and a half.
Yeah.
And some of them are straight and some of them have really nice dive to them, or some. Now maybe I want to go into the spin rate and working on grips, but I've got the ball going to the same exact area where I want it to go, but now I want to make sure I get the movement, the consistent movement, or the consistent velocity, or the consistent change of either one of those. But he's having trouble, for me, getting the ball in the area where he wants first.
Herrera couldn't lay off a breaking ball. They say that he offered. 4th strikeout tonight for Trevor Bauer.
I don't think there's any doubt that Trevor Bauer can spin a baseball. We see the break that he has, the little cut fastball, the slider, and that curveball right there that got Herrera to chase. But if you get so many revolutions and a great curveball like that, but you can't command it, then I'm going to go for less spin and repeat my body and have at least a curveball that I can play with.
Runner at first with 1 out for the 9-hitter Trace Thompson. Takes ball 1. Bauer was the 3rd overall pick in the draft in 2011. And was first known, beyond being a really good college pitcher and a highly touted prospect. Gained notoriety for his crazy warm-up routine and his crazy between start routine. And got a reputation attached to him while he was in Arizona that was a little bit stubborn, didn't want to adjust to the way that the Diamondbacks wanted him to tweak those warm-ups, tweak that routine.
And anything that was cutting edge or new, he wanted to try and seemed to add to his routine.
Delivers 2-0 to Trace Thompson. 2-1.
Well, that pitch right there is outstanding. I mean, that's a outstanding cut fastball, low and away right on the corner. This one's hard to hit. I don't care if you're a Hall of Famer or you're a young guy trying to make an impact like Trace is. That's late and perfect as far as accuracy.
That was pretty darn good too. Doesn't get the call. 3-1.
Yeah, he went cutter away right to the black, and then he tried to take a two-seamer and bring it back to that corner. And you can see why Trace was frozen. If that ball comes back some more and gets to the corner, there's just no way you can hit that.
3-1 to Trace Thompson. Left it over the plate, and he hammered it to right center. Hernandez on his horse from first. He heads home on an RBI double from Trace Thompson to the opposite field.
That was not a mistake. That was a great piece of hitting. 3 balls that were about the same velocity on the outside corner area. This one going back to the cutter, kind of backs up a little bit, doesn't get right down to the knees, kind of gets a little bit of the outer half slightly up, and Trace Thompson put a sweet swing on that ball driving into that gap, and there's no doubt it's a double and no doubt it scores Kike.
And no doubt it feels good for Trace Thompson, who has hit so many atom balls this spring. No chance anyone was catching that. And an RBI double that cuts it to 2-1 and brings up the top of the order again. And Jock Peterson, who is 0 for 2 tonight.
A little glimpse into what Turner Ward thinks about Jock Peterson and what he's working on with the great interview from Alana down there on the bench. And right there, you know, a mistake in the middle of the play, kind of up, and you see what Turner said about young players. What they're trying to eliminate with Jock is young players, when they get those pitches that they can kill, just getting too big. And that was a huge swing right there. Getting too big is when your extension is too early, when you get long behind your body instead of out in front. So you want to go compact to extension. You want to go short to long. And all of a sudden you start lengthening your swing behind you. That's when it gets long and inaccurate.
Waits on a 1-1. 1-2. The 26 home runs last year. Second most by a rookie in Los Angeles Dodgers history. Only Piazza's 35 homers in 93 topped that mark for rookies. But most of them came early in the season. 20 of the 26 came through the end of June.
And then the berth into the All-Star game and the home run hitting contest.
Second time he's down on strikes tonight. 2 away in the 5th. So now Puig struck out in the first inning. And then in the third, hit a ball off of the wall in center. But it took a perfect bounce to Rajai Davis. And Puig was tagged out trying to turn it into a double. A lot of movement on that pitch.
You can see our last 2 young hitters have gotten big with the first pitch swings. Got a man on second now and 2 outs, and we just need a base hit. We don't need him to hit it back to Glendale.
Off of the handle and an easy play for Bauer. But the Dodgers get on the board, and a double from Trace Thompson to score Kike Hernandez. Halfway home in a 2-1 game.
I think the most disappointing part about it all is just getting games taken away from you. I was talking to some of the young guys through text, and you don't realize, how many opportunities you're going to get to play and keep playing, and then when something like this takes games away from, the possible chance you get to keep playing more, and that's probably the toughest part to swallow, is knowing that, those games are getting taken away.
10 to 14 weeks with the fractured leg for Andre Ethier, as Clayton Kershaw goes back to work against the middle third of the Indians order. Mike Napoli takes ball one, and you feel for a guy that had gone from last year having lost his spot coming into the season, earning it back, having a great bounce back season, was having a huge spring, was looking like he was maybe going to be the leadoff hitter for a chunk of the year. And he said it too. He's deep into his career at this point, and realizes at this point how special each opportunity to play the game is.
He's a genuinely a great guy, a family guy, and he has been an impact player in that locker room. The way he's handled the clogged outfield and been threatened to have been traded all this time, to rescuing the team over the last few years as far as who can play center field now, who can play right, who can play left, and then when somebody comes back, he goes back into possibly a platoon role or losing playing time, but has always handled it professionally, been a great teammate, and then to be healthy last year and to turn it around. He goes from 249 to 294. He goes from 4 home runs to 14 home runs, and he's the longest tenured Dodger. This is a big loss to the emotional side of it, and the fact that he is really swinging a professional bat again, where you talk about Howie Kendrick, you talk about Adrian Gonzalez, you talk about Justin Turner, but the other consistent at bat you get was Andre Ethier.
And over time is starting to accrue some numbers that are up near the top all time among Los Angeles outfielders over his decade in Dodger blue. There's Marlon Byrd, who is 1 for 2 today. Doubled his last time after grounding out in the first inning. 1-1.
We just hope that we get him back. He can have a really strong second half, and maybe we get him back before the All-Star break. Maybe he starts to ease in maybe sometime before that, but it's going to hopefully be a good trade of a trade you never made. You get him back, and makes a contribution again.
Hopefully there'll be a few of those mid-season. Brandon McCarthy, the Tommy John surgery, missed last season. He's due back sometime late in June is his target.
Mr. Ryu.
Yeah.
It'd be great to get him back. And we're waiting right now to get Yasmani Grandal back and Corey Seager. A couple years ago, we had to wait a little while to get Clayton Kershaw back after pitching over in Australia. Pitching so well, ended up going down. A little something in his back. Last year, we had pushed through the Kenley Jansen foot injury and surgery.
Bouncing ball to third that hit the lip of the grass. Turner throws it into right field. Puig comes up gunning, but into third goes Napoli.
A little scoot off the lip of the grass, messed up a little bit of JT's timing and footwork, and he pulled that throw to the left field side of second base. Herrera comes up looking to possibly turn two, and right about there just kind of jams him a little bit. Herrera might have been able to save him a little bit.
First error of the night is charged to Turner, who's had a few throwing errors this spring. And they're at the corners with nobody out. As Kershaw readies for his 90th pitch of this outing. It's on its way to Juan Uribe. Strike one.
He wanted to go 6. Not only the combination, what we look for in the pitch counts, but also the hot and the colds, the up and the down. And Rick Honeycutt tries to extend these guys, and Clayton's goal tonight was to go 6. Pitch count might catch him tonight, not be able to go 6, but maybe just finish this 5th, or maybe even get relieved during this inning.
Uribe pops it up on the infield. Kike Hernandez taking charge. One out. So now a ground ball can get Kershaw out of this inning. As Joey Butler comes up 0 for 2 today with a ground out and a strikeout.
Remember, we pointed out in the last thing how Kershaw's out there just sparring and not really looking like he's on his game, and then he comes up with the back-to-back strikeouts to end the 4th. He's still only giving up 2 spots. The Dodgers come back and get him 1, and all of a sudden here you see the same type of inning where he'll box and fight his way out of it a lot of times.
Indians are 0 for their last 6 with 4 strikeouts with runners in scoring position. Talk about bearing down.
I'm not going to attribute that to Indians bats. I'm going to attribute that to number 22 on the mound. That guy has a lot to do with people who don't hit when runners are in scoring position.
It's 0-1 to Joey Butler. Strike 2. Base runners galore for the Indians tonight. But 7 base hits, had a man reach on an error. He's walked 3, so 11 base runners. But only 2 runs to show for it, thanks to Kershaw's ability to battle out of some jams.
Clayton's been pitching on the 405. Lots of traffic.
Great stop, A.J. Ellis.
Another good sign for the health of A.J.'s knees. How quick can they get down, and if they can go into almost any stance they want, and as quick as they can.
He laid off. It's going to help immensely knowing that you have a catcher who's going to drop down and stop just about anything you throw.
Yeah, I don't think Clayton will ever shake to a pitch selection and thinking I can't throw that because AJ won't block it, or Yasmani, I mean, they are strictly going to get the hitter out, and it proved right there when they throw public enemy #1 with a man on third and 1 out.
Bouncing ball could finish the inning, and it will. 6-4-3 to get Kershaw out of another jam. All kinds of traffic. 11 base runners total against him, but he gives up just 2 runs. Two-one game as we go to the 6th. Back here in Goodyear, Arizona. You can guarantee your tickets to opening day with the 2016 Dodgers mini plan. Choose from great promotional games which feature fan favorites like bobbleheads and brand new retired number pins. Visit Dodgers.com/mini plans to learn more. Clayton Kershaw likely finished. Goes 5 innings, allows 2 runs on 7 hits. Through 96 pitches. And a hard-earned, solid line for him tonight.
Good piece of work, and it's typical Clayton Kershaw, not with the dominance, but with the fact that he can just pitch through traffic and not give up a lot of runs.
His job at Chamberlain, who split last season between the Tigers and Royals. Now getting a chance with the Indians and getting Justin Turner to start this 6th inning. Strike 1. Chamberlain has pitched in 7 games this spring. He gave up 3 runs to the Dodgers in his 2nd outing. Hasn't given up a run to anybody else.
It's really the way it is for the relievers. You don't worry about their ERA. You worry about how many times they can take the mound and put up a 0. They're going to have their bad outings, and in their bad outings, if they give up 3 or 4, or for some reason the guy coming in behind them after their rough outing kind of paints them where they give up hits too, and you have back-to-back relievers have bad outings, that can really change their earned run averages completely. Just look at the consistency of when the bullpen gate opens, the manager brings them in the game. How often are they on their game?
Justin Turner leading off this 6th.
Justin Turner has the uncanny ability to hit for power and also have amazing bat control when he gets fooled to just find the outfield grass with a blooper or a bleeder. Usually the power hitters, guys that hit for power, they've got such big swings that they swing and miss guys, or they pop the ball up. But when he gets into RBI situations with a man on third and less than 2 out, when he gets into situations when he has 2 strikes, he has the ability to switch gears and just worry about contact and use the opposite field really well. but he also can open up his swing and hit for power.
Stays alive here. He's fouled off several pitches during this at-bat.
Like right there, just that little breaking ball that completely fooled him. That ball's probably 6 inches off the ground. He's out in front, and he's able to keep the leg up in the air, read the spin on it, go, oh, I wish I wasn't swinging, but I am now, and release the top hand and just get a piece of it and roll over it. Still in the batter's box.
Waits in another 1-2. Takes it inside. Count goes even.
It's hard to get out of the way of a baseball coming at you when you're standing like a flamingo.
Hard to do it, period.
When the Dodgers used to be in Florida, we see a lot of flamingos in front yards.
Yeah. What an at-bat. What a professional at-bat from Justin Turner to lead off this 6.
You don't get to see that hit if he doesn't foul off the breaking ball 6 inches off the ground, or know that not swing at that fastball that's almost going to hit him in a belly button, and now hangs in there long enough for Chamberlain to make a mistake, gets the foot down after reading the pitch, and just drives it from where it came.
So the tying run aboard. The go-ahead run at the plate in the form of Adrian Gonzalez. A fly out to center. A ground out to short. Started him with a change and missed. 1-0. There are not many sure things at this point about the Dodgers lineup. Part of that is the injuries that they've dealt with. One of the things you can pretty much Sharpie in is Adrian Gonzalez in that cleanup spot.
And I think when Justin Turner's in there, you can probably put him in the 3-hole.
Beyond that?
Yep, we'll see where we go from there. But in a perfect world, I think Dave Roberts would like to see these two be the 3-4 guys.
We're kind of scratching out our own guesses at what the early season lineup might look like. But as soon as you think you kind of got it figured out, you remember something like, oh, yeah, but then where does Seager fit? Or you go through and you forget to put Howie Kendrick in. And then you say, well, you can't put Howie Kendrick in the bottom third. You got to find a spot to put him to the top. There are good problems to have. It's not just the problems Dave Roberts is dealing with because of the injuries. There are some good problems he's got to figure out.
When you have trouble slipping guys into a lineup when you think this is the way it's going to go, and the reason is because they're too high a quality hitter to be at the bottom of the order, that means the Dodger lineup would have a chance to be long and powerful. If Yasiel Puig is Yasiel Puig, if Jock Peterson is Jock Peterson of the first half of last year, you know, if Justin Turner stays healthy, if Adrian Gonzalez continues to be the 100 RBI guy, consistent guy, if Carl Crawford is the guy who plays against righties in left field and he can be the old Carl Crawford, I mean, you could end up, and Howie Kendrick, I mean, you could end up with a very long and strong lineup. Justin Turner doing his thing. Kike Hernandez doing his thing when he's in there. Yasmani Grandal and A.J. Ellis, the way he swung the bat at the end of last year. Yasmani, you know, was an all-star. And A.J. in September was really swinging a good bat.
That's a walk to Gonzalez, and the first two have reached against Chamberlain here in the 6th inning. And a name we've not even mentioned significantly as we're talking about building this lineup is the guy that has been the best hitter all spring, and the guy coming to the plate right now, Scott Van Slyke, who's not been retired tonight, doubled in the 2nd and walked in the 4th.
Now, Scott has been kind of the Dodgers ambush hitter, you know, against the lefties and coming off the bench that he can really bring some sock. But the more we see him here this spring, the more you see that consistent professional at bat where it's not as much all or nothing. Or maybe it's not going to be just against certain people, that he might be able to start showing that he can do it on a day in and day out basis.
Turner single to start the inning. Gonzalez with a walk. Best opportunity for the Dodgers tonight. 2 on, nobody out against Chamberlain. We can't seem to get on the same page right now as Roberto Perez.
Java pointed to his eyes like I'm having trouble seeing the signs. Go a little slower and you can see the glow in the dark yellow paint on the fingernails.
In the air to right. Back on it is Cowgill with plenty of room. Van Slyke retired. The Turner motors to third.
A good job by Scott right there, getting Justin Turner over to third. A.J. Ellis can finish off the challenge of getting that run in. Fly out to right, but you still get a high five.
Ellis 0 for 2 at the plate tonight, but probably deserves credit for having the score be where it is, partly with as good of a job as he did with all the traffic there was on the bases on a night that wasn't Kershaw's sharpest, blocking so many pitches.
There's no slight to Yasmani Grandal, but A.J. Ellis and Clayton Kershaw are on the same page, and there's a comfort level with. I know he's not a personal catcher, and Yasmani, if he would have been healthy tonight, probably would have caught Clayton, but there's a comfort between those two that will be hard to catch for any catcher.
Well done. See what you did there with
it's a veteran thing, Rook. You'll get there.
I'll learn. Give me time. Buckled his knees with an off speed, and it's 0-2.
AJ's trying to get something in the air because he hits it on the ground with his wheels. It's probably a double play. This would be maybe the easiest combo to get a double play with Adrian Gonzalez at first and him at the plate. Looking to get something in the air to get that run in.
Turner singled, Gonzalez walked, Van Slyke flied out, and Ellis strikes out.
AJ has looked in between mentally with these at-bats tonight. Strikeout in the first inning when he's trying to get somebody over from second base with less than 2 out, get him to third, and kind of got in between, and right there kind of got in between with an 0-2 fastball. Probably didn't expect that, probably thinking along as a catcher, what would I call, and wasn't ready for the heater.
So Java Chamberlain is 1 out away from getting out of this inning where Turner and Gonzalez reached before there was an out. They're at the corners now with 2 away. And Kike Hernandez, who is 0 for 1, takes ball 1. Walked to start last inning, came in to score the Dodgers' only run of the night on a Trace Thompson double. Chamberlain's 1-0. Breaking ball, Anthony's 1-1.
Java, when he came up with the Yankees, big fastball and then a small slider / cutter with Mariano Rivera there, but changed the grip on his slider a few years ago and made it bigger, like that curveball break there. He's doing a nice job locating both right now.
Broke in with the Yankees in 07. Went to the Tigers after 7 years in New York. Split last year between Detroit and Kansas City. Hernandez lines one to right. Cowgill makes a running play, and the Indians get out of an inning. They saw Turner and Gonzalez reach consecutively to begin the frame. It remains 2-1. Bottom of the sixth, moments ago, Alana Rizzo caught up with Clayton Kershaw.
Clayton, this one seemed to be, from the outside looking in, a battle, but you escaped with only the 2 earned runs. How would you assess it?
Yeah, it was a struggle. Definitely guys on base the whole night, not making very good pitches. Yeah, you know, it was a tough night.
One more start before it counts. Is this 2 starts before the regular season starts? Is this one any more difficult than the others that you've had just because of timing?
No, not really. You know, just trying to get your pitch count up there. I don't know how many I threw. It felt like a million tonight. So, you know, this was kind of the final tune-up for the regular season. Next one's just making sure you're in good rhythm, and you got to get ready to go no matter what.
Finally, for you, Clayton, is there anything that was not working in particular that you'll take out of this to do in the next outing?
Everything wasn't working at times, so you know, I made a few good pitches here and there, but you know, there's always, hopefully next one's better.
Shake this one off for the next one. Thanks, Clayton. All right, guys.
All right, Joe Blanton replaces him and goes to work against 8, 9, and 1 in the Indians' order. Strike one to Colin Cowgill.
You could tell from Clayton doing the interview with Alana, nice to give us the time and for Alana to be down there to get it, but not real satisfied and a little frustration, but he'll go in and he'll figure it out, and he always has. And you know how much I do appreciate just the way he can battle when it's not his best. You don't win Cy Young after Cy Young and finishing he's one of a kind. He's finishing the top 3 in the Cy Young voting all last 5 years.
Yep.
That's one of a kind in all of Major League Baseball.
Blanton falls behind Cowgill 3-1. It is, of course, Joe Blanton's first year in LA, first year of his second stint in LA. He was with the Dodgers in 2012, made 10 starts after the Phillies traded him in August, and has revived his career as a reliever. And this is inside to Cowgill, and that's how his night begins. Hitter Roberto Perez walked twice against Kershaw, and now gets Blanton. He came out of retirement with Kansas City last year and turned himself into a reliever for the very first time. just found himself in a stacked bullpen in Kansas City. Runner takes off. Ellis throws down, not in time, and a stolen base for Cowgill. So he got off to a good start, did Bland in Kansas City, but when they acquired Johnny Cueto, they had to make a move to find a roster spot for Cueto, so they designated Bland for assignment. Pittsburgh picked him up. And basically, the audition that he provided in that time with Pittsburgh earned him this contract he got with the Dodgers. Went 5-0 with a 1.57 in 21 games down the stretch for Pittsburgh.
He's kind of reinvented himself. Abbreviated windup when he's in the windup now, and he's added a breaking ball and a changeup, and really has become an effective pitcher to go once through the lineup.
You mentioned that breaking ball. As a starter, he was throwing the slider about 15% of the time. He threw it more than 30% of the time as a reliever last year.
And you can do that, you know, a pitch that maybe stresses you too much to throw over the course of a whole game, 110 pitches or so as a starter, but you can go ahead and up the production of that pitch when you know you're only going to throw maybe 45 pitches or so in an outing. And also, you know, when you only go once through the order, if that's the most effective pitch that gets people out, you don't have to worry about getting them out again.
Missing his spots early in this one.
I think he's wondering also how big is the strike zone back there right now, because he's living near the corners.
Walked Cowgill. He's fallen behind Perez, who has already walked twice tonight, 3-0. Down Broadway, 3-1. J.P. Howell starting to warm for the Dodgers. Sixth outing of the spring for Blanton. He's given up only 2 earned runs in 9 2/3 so far. And his 3-1 to Perez is low. Back-to-back walks to begin the 6th.
Does give him a chance to work on their bunt defense right here with Blanton out there. Something that he'll have to do in the regular season. As we see J.P. Howell out there in left field. The Dodger bullpen warming up. We're going to get to see a lot of the guys tonight that are going to be in the Dodger bullpen that are scheduled to get some work.
Rajai Davis, leadoff man, takes strike 1. 2 on and nobody out here in the 6th inning. Dodgers defensively thinking perhaps bunt here from Davis, who didn't show it on that first pitch. Swings away, strike 2. Corners will back up now. Cracked in the air to left center. Peterson on the move. He's under it to make the catch. Cowgill takes 3rd.
It's a 0-2 count after 2 breaking balls. A.J. Ellis wanted the fastball up around the neck, I think, to get back to a breaking ball or 2. And you see where the target is, but you see Joe pulls it down and away, gives him a chance to get a ball to the outfield, get the barrel on it.
Dave Roberts comes out and is going to take it from Joe Blanton. Bring J.P. Howell into the game to face a left-handed hitter in Jason Kipnis. by BMW. See a Southern California BMW Center today for exceptional offers, or visit SoCalBMW.com. J.P. Howell replaces Joe Blanton, and here it's runners at the corners, and Dave Roberts playing a little lefty-lefty change here with Jason Kipnis coming up.
JP will have this, and Luis Avilan will get this role also. And looking for a double play ball here. Rescue that run over there, or that possible run on third base.
There's strike one. Kipnis 1 for 2 tonight. Doubled and scored the game's first run. He walked and then he struck out, all against Kershaw. That's with Cowgill at third and Perez at first. And an 0-1 from J.P. Howell. Dives outside, 1-1. Caught the edge that time, 1-2.
Pitching him conventionally, bring in the left-on-left situation, start him out with the breaking ball, and then go 2 fastballs away on the corner and catch the corner on the second one. Can almost go anywhere right here. Just make sure it's a quality chase pitch. Got him set up now for a sweeping breaking ball if he can pull one out of his back pocket. He's shown that he can throw strikes on that outside corner, so Kipnis has got to watch for that. So you start that breaking ball looking like it's going to be a fastball away, you can walk him right off the plate.
Foul tipped in and out of the mid of Ellis, and so Kipnis stays alive.
Got it away, but not down.
J.P. Howell against Jason Kipnis. Runners at the corners and 1 away, and a 2-1 game in the 6th. And a 1-2 delivery. Gets away from Ellis. No chance at stopping that one. And Cowgill's in to score, 3-1 Cleveland.
Making sure he got it down, making sure he got it away, and just got too much of it. A.J. tried his best to get his body in front of it. This ball escalates, or elevates. It's a tough play for a catcher.
First one that's gotten by him on what, about 10 balls in the dirt tonight?
Yeah.
So now a 2-2. Got him. Again, left it up, but Kipnis out in front of it for strike 3.
A hanger that worked. He overhung it.
And you can see by his reaction, he kind of knew it, right? This time of year, it's not always about the bottom line result. He knows what's behind that result. That is not a pitch that he wanted to throw.
Not at all, but it worked.
Lindor with 2 gone. Singled home run in the first inning, and then Kershaw struck him out twice. Lindor only 22 years old. He was the 8th overall pick of the Indians back in 2011. Same year that the starter tonight for the Indians, Trevor Bauer, was taken 3rd overall. Originally from Puerto Rico, moved with his family to Florida when he was 12. Helped get him better opportunities to be noticed. Went to Montverde Academy. The Indians took him in the top 10 picks. Waits on an 0-1. Strike two. Powell came on, struck out Kipnis. It's 1-2 on Lindor.
Lindor is just an unbelievable fielder. And if he hits the way he hit last year, he's going to play in that All-Star game year in and year out. Because the defense is Gold Glove caliber, and the offense, if the bat really is as lively as it's been at the big league level compared to what it was at the minor league level, he still looks like he's going to get stronger.
In the air to center. Peterson on the move. Not going to get there. Lindor with extra bases to score Berto Perez, and it's 3-1 with a 2-out double for the 22-year-old shortstop.
Change up that's up, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of change in it. A little firm for JP. When a guy who throws a good changeup doesn't have a lot of break to it, that means his hand was probably too far behind it, and it ends up being too hard. Doesn't have enough deflection, enough spin on it. Tell JP's shaking himself.
Those 2 runs both charged to Joe Blanton. Runner at second will be J.P. Howell's responsibility as the third pitcher of this inning checks into the game. It's Jamie Wright. Back in a moment. Jackie Robinson Friday, April 15th, when the Dodgers meet the rival Giants at 7:10. First 40,000 fans get a replica Jackie Robinson jersey from Bank of America. Visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Officially, it was a full moon last night. That looks pretty darn full to me.
It doesn't go from like full to quarter all of a sudden in one night.
No, I know. So I guess this is like 99% full, because it's officially not, I'm told.
Does it go from smallest to largest in 1 month?
I don't know.
I don't either.
No. We need Nomar here. Would he know?
Oh, yeah. He know. He would even know what calendar we should be on and why we shouldn't be on the one we're on.
And he'd know what bottle of wine we should have when it's 99% full.
For sure.
Jamie Wright, third pitcher of this inning for the Dodgers. It was Blanton, then it was Howell. And now it's Wright against Mike Napoli. Oh for 2 today, or 1 for 3 today. A couple of strikeouts and a single. Couple of veterans going at it here, right? 41 years old. Hard hit, base hit. Look out, Lindor had to duck to make sure that he didn't get drilled by it. Still able to score, and it's 5-1.
When it's a tough inning like this for the bullpen, it really makes you appreciate Clayton and what he did as he battled out, because as he gets in these situations, he's able to figure out a way to worm out of it. And right now, the bullpen gate open for the Dodgers, and it just hasn't been at the highest of levels yet. Jamie Wright battling to make an impression and get on this team.
I was scanning through my notes on Wright to see if, as you see, Lindor, look out. Still able to regain his balance and score. I was checking to see, did Jamie Wright pitch for the Indians? And I thought to myself, probably at some point. And he did in 2010. One of the 10 teams that he spent time with. His 19 big league seasons.
10 teams.
10 teams.
I knew it was a lot.
You want to
remember it was 10. Well, let me see. I got a 1 out of 3 shot just if I start naming teams.
You do. Just start naming teams. Yeah.
Texas, Rockies, Indians.
That's another hard hit ball and a base hit for Marlon Byrd. Wait, start again.
I said Texas, Colorado,
yep.
Cleveland,
yep.
LA, of course.
Yep.
Let's go. Not the Giants.
He did pitch for the Giants.
Oh,
06.
Okay. Brewers.
He did pitch for the Brewers 2000 through 2002.
Yankees.
It's a good guess because they're a baseball team too, but no.
You know what I didn't like about that guess?
What's that?
Someone in the truck said it in my ear, and they got it wrong.
They got it wrong.
It killed me.
Maybe my notes are wrong. I always trust the truck.
No, I think they were guessing, and they just
okay.
wanted to be involved and were talking in my ear.
Last time we do that.
I'm not going to throw anybody in the truck under the bus. I'm just going to say it came from the truck.
Okay. Do you want me to fill you in?
Yeah, I think we should just finish it off.
Okay.
There's 2 outs.
Who are we missing? He pitched 4 games for the Cardinals in 02. 2 stints with the Royals, 03 and 09. 10 and 11 with the Mariners. And then 13 with the Rays.
I now want to look up Mike Morgan. I think it was 17. Something like that Mike Morgan pitched for.
And is that the record?
I think it might be. I'm quickly going to Google on that
one. Right to Uribe with an 0-2 pitch.
Wow.
Looked like it tailed over the edge, but didn't get the call.
That's for sure. Now, he played for 12 different teams over 25 years. Mike Morgan did. And he's one of 29 players in baseball history to appear in a Major League Baseball game in 4 decades.
Wow.
Michael Thomas Morgan. And of course, he was a Dodger.
Almost picks him off his second. Napoli back in there. Now,
Rare sneaks in there and just doesn't get the tag down. Just nick of time, gets back in there.
Right, pitches 2-2 to Juan Uribe. And that ball is hit in the air to left. Thompson moving over. He's under it. And that is the inning. Indians add a few against a few different Dodger pitchers. And after 6, it's 5-1. Three runs added by the Indians in the bottom of the 6th. They lead 5-1 as we go to the 7th. And we look at our Carl's Cam replay from earlier in the night. Some fantastic defense from Rajai Davis.
Some center field play and catching the ball on the warning track. And then he also shows he can play the carom on Yasiel Puig's ball here on that bullet to center. One hopped off the wall. Bang, bang play there. A little better slide maybe Yasiel sneaks in, but Rajai Davis's plays are good enough for tonight's Carl's Cam special.
Trevor Bauer continues, or Brian Shaw, beg your pardon, into the game. And so is just about everybody else for the Indians, making all kinds of changes. Leon Herrera fouls it off, and it's 0-2. This is Shaw's 7th game of the spring. We talked a few days ago about how hard it is if you have a bad outing early to make that ERA look decent. He gave up 5 runs and got only 2 outs in his spring debut, and his ERA was 67.5. It's already down below 10 though. Glass half full.
When I was in Double-A baseball, trying to get to the big leagues, we went on a road trip in early June, and in early June my ERA was 0.6 in Double-A. We got off the road trip, my ERA was 8.6.
Oh, what did you do?
I gave up 27 earned runs in like 3 outings and got like all of 2 outs. So yeah, 0.6 to 8.6, and I actually quit baseball.
I was going to ask if you thought you were in trouble.
We got home to San Antonio. I was playing with the San Antonio Dodgers. Got home to San Antonio and gave up like a leadoff triple, and in backing up third base, twisted my ankle and like was going to go on the DL. And I quit. They had to come to my apartment like 3 days in a row and convince me to come back, get treatment, and yeah, you're going to be okay. I'm like, if I can't get Double-A hitters out, 27 some runs,
right?
It ain't going to happen.
Trace Thompson goes the other way with his 2nd base hit of the night.
Ducky LeJohn and Gary Wheelock was my pitching coach. Ducky LeJohn was my manager, and they convinced me to come back with a couple guys, teammates, and I made to the big leagues a couple years later.
Dodger fans thank them for talking you into it.
I guess I was down and out.
Jock Peterson. Happy to see Trevor Bauer out of there. Went 0 for 3 against him. Flied out to right. Struck out twice. Ball 1. Speaking of quitting, we've reached that stage of the game where you quit keeping score in spring training.
Yes. I keep score for the starting pitchers, and I'm about done after that. And because the booths are so small, I can just glance over at yours.
Right. Yeah.
And you're doing a good job.
Thanks.
You're doing a really nice job.
Thanks, Oral.
You have good penmanship.
Well, I want to make sure you can read it.
One of the things I'm learning about you.
Right, in all caps in here, too.
You worry about the size of the moon, and you have good penmanship.
That's all you really need to know.
And we've reached the part of the game where
we're talking about moons and penmanship. 1-2 from Brian Shaw to Jock Peterson. Tapped it off of the plate. Shaw cuts off first base and takes it to the bag.
Pretty good athlete jumping off that mound right there. It's a 1.5 hopper. He's over there cutting the first baseman off. Look at this. Man. One of the things that has changed in the last 5 to 10 years is the route the pitcher takes to first base on a ground ball to his left. The old school way used to be to run over to the 45-foot line and then run straight up the line to first base. Now it's you attack the ball. Attack the ball, and once you get the ball, just change your route and go tag the base yourself.
What changed that?
A lot of guys getting faster. Pitchers being more nimble and athletic off the mound, I think, and too many hits being made from those choppers where the pitcher just let the ball alone and made the fielder, the second baseman, the first baseman get it. And they just figured there's too many weak hit ground balls to the right side that the pitcher actually could catch. And they all of a sudden turned pitchers into athletes and allowed them to do more.
Yasiel Puig 1 for 3 tonight. Waits on a 1-0 from Shaw. And hits it in the air to right center field. Cowgill racing back, not going to get there. And it one-hops the wall. Puig with an RBI double, scoring Thompson in a 5-2 game. Nice to see him going to the opposite field with some power.
He's hit the ball real well tonight. Scorched one to center field, and he got a single that could have been a double with a better slide and maybe get out of the box a little quicker on both of them. Cut down on the observation skills, but the swing right now in spring, he's looking better and better the way he's swinging the bat. I'm not sure he would have tried for a triple, but you just want to build those habits of busting out of there.
Rob Seguin bats for the first time tonight. Takes strike 1. Hitting for Justin Turner. And likely will stay in the game and play for Turner at third. Seguin has hit 4 homers in Cactus League action this year. His first year in the Dodgers system, came over from the Yankees. That one skips by Perez. Puig will saunter to third.
Get this guy in there from third. Let's get that vibe going in the clubhouse that the offense can do its thing and try and get a win out of it tonight.
Oof. What a tight zone, hasn't it?
I think all spring the zone feels a little tight. You know, I haven't been here the whole time, but in the games that I've done and you and I have done, it seems like that outside corner is not wide.
Seguin fouls it back, and the count goes full. Puig at third with 2 away. And Shaw to Seguin with a 3-2 pitch. Lays off. Nice trip for Rob Seguin. He earns the walk, and they're at the corners for Adrian Gonzalez.
Shows some maturity, taking a walk in this situation here where you're trying to make a team and impress people. You already got 4 home runs in the spring, and man on third and 2 out. You just take the walk and pass the baton to this guy who can definitely drive runs in.
And has the ability to tie it with 1 swing. 1 home run in 8 games so far in spring training. Ryan Shaw delivers. Gonzalez trying to tie it. Strike 1.
You will see that with Adrian. He is a great situational hitter, including knowing when it's time to look for the long ball. Cross-checking the location of that pitch that it's up with the bench. Staring into the Dodger dugout right there.
Five-time All-Star. Bounces 1 to third. That backs up Medina, and he goes to second for the force, finishing the frame. Dodgers get 1 and a double from Puig, and it's 5-2. Five runs on 10 hits for the Indians. Dodgers with 2 on 7 hits. Joe Davis, Oral Hershiser, Alana Rizzo back in Goodyear. Jamie Wright's finished. We told you that he's played for 10 teams now in his career. And we got a list of the guys that have played for the most franchises in Major League history. Octavio Dotel played for 13. That's the most all time. But Wright's 10 teams. Right, is it 10?
10.
Puts him 19th all time. There are only 18 guys that have played for 11 or more. Kenley Jansen's only played for 1. Dodger fans are happy that that's the case, and he's into the game. Along with Rob Seguin at first, Mike Ahmed at third, Charlie Culberson at short, Rico Noel in center,
Devin Ahart in right. You got all those?
Hence the reason I do not keep score anymore.
Joey Butler takes strike one.
Just write those neatly in your book for me, please.
Yeah, I'm making sure they're clean, Mr. Hershiser.
Kenley.
And a nice bounce back 1-2-3 inning Monday against Seattle after he gave up the game-winning home run on Saturday against the White Sox. Been in on Butler, ball one.
Maybe loosen you up a little bit. Keep you off the cutter low and away right here. I think that might get thrown. Fastball upstairs. Kenley came into camp looking a lot thinner and more fit. 36 out of 38 saves that he got last year. Head to toe looks a lot better right now. Got off the carbs.
And he starts his outing with a strikeout.
Didn't go directly to the cutter low and away, but got there one pitch later.
Here's Colin Cowgill, who's reached all 3 times tonight. In fact, the bottom 2 in the Indians' order yet to be retired. Between Cowgill and Roberto Perez, they've gone 2 for 2 with 4 walks. Scored 2 of the 5 Indian runs. It's an Indians team that if they hit, they're going to be dangerous. The American League Central this year, one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. We talked about that. We saw Bauer tonight. He's the 4. Kluber, Carrasco, Salazar. Options in the 5 spot. They were number 2 in ERA last year in the American League. They had the number 1 K rate in Major League history. A lot of strikeout arms. But the offense last year was the issue for Cleveland. They're 11th in runs per game in the American League. 13th in home runs. 1-2 on Cowgill.
You think about the Texas Ranger staff. They've got some outstanding pitchers with Darvish and Hamels and Holland at the top. It's another big-time staff in the American League. The Houston Astros staff with Kuchel. They go deep over there. These Indians, they can throw a frontline pitcher at you 4 out of 5 nights for sure.
I'm hoping they can avoid another slow start. All 3 years under Terry Francona, they've been one of the best teams in baseball after April. They've gotten into holes they couldn't climb out of. Kenley Jansen, back-to-back strikeouts to start his night. Yeah, last year there were 7-14 the Indians were to begin the season. Just couldn't totally dig themselves out of that hole. Well above 500 the rest of the way. Finished 3rd in the Central, behind the eventual World Series champion Royals.
A lot of magazines and predictors got them squeaking into the wild card this year.
Sports Illustrated picked them to win it last year.
It was a little off.
Yeah, it was Sports Illustrated jinx. Put them on the cover.
If you remember, a lot of people picked the San Diego Padres to do really well last year too, with all the big acquisitions they made. That didn't work out either.
I bet there was an expert or two that had an Indians Padres World Series preseason. Let's see, if you did it by who won the offseason this year, what would the World Series be?
Well, the Cubs are getting a lot of hype to look like they're going to be in the World Series, and I think the Royals are going to see some pub that way too.
I think Las Vegas has the Mets up there and the Giants up there having shots. I think the Dodgers are in the top 5 or 6 odds wise coming out of Vegas.
Three and 2 after falling behind 3-0 on Clint Frazier.
Let's have the perfect inning right here, Kenley.
Struck out Butler, struck out Cowgill, and struck out Frazier. After he fell behind 3-0, Kenley Jansen strikes out the side. We go to the eighth.
Kenley Jansen, a very efficient outing, striking out the side. You're as locked in as I've seen you, and you said the other day you're ready to go. You ready for the season to start?
I'm ready now. I mean, I just treat this game like a regular season, I feel like. And, you know, we got one more week left, so we got to treat it like it's a season now.
What's left to work on for you, if anything?
I think just back-to-back days. Like, I'm going to get back-to-back days tomorrow in backfield. I think that's the one thing, and then a down and up and down, like try to get 4 out, and I'll be good to go.
Last season, you started the season on the deal. This year, knock on wood, healthy. How much of a difference maker has that been for you, Kenley?
I've been feeling really good. I mean, you know, your confidence is up. You're having a real spring training, get your arm ready, and, you know, I feel great.
Strange not coming in the ninth.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially, you know, you're down by 3 runs. You know, no adrenaline. You just almost have to feel like you got to trick yourself up, so I'll be feeling great.
All right, nice outing. Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
All right, guys.
All right, thank you, Alana. Thank you to Kenley for spending some time with us.
Can't you just tell he's a big teddy bear?
Yeah.
In the interview right after striking out the side, and he's as low-key as they come.
Doesn't make it any more fun to face him, though. That is for sure. One of the top closers in the game. Scott Van Slyke leading off this inning. 1 ball and 2 strikes against Dan Otero. Spent last year with the A's. And the numbers not pretty.
Indians looking to catch lightning in a bottle. With relievers, sometimes you catch them in an every other year situation. When they have a really good year, they get maybe overused or don't respond. And then when they have
a bad year, they're underused and they get rested, and the sinker all of a sudden gets some depth, the slider gets some depth. Ball was a little elevated to be a strike.
So too.
Two-seamer that's supposed to sink and just kind of stays up there and tails, and I guess is a strike. It was called a strike.
Indians are hoping that he regains his form from his first 2 years in Oakland. He was really good, 13 and 14. Drops one in for a strike to A.J. Ellis. Debuted with the Giants, did Otero, back in 2012. And then in 13 and 14, the numbers really impressive before last year's performance, where that wasn't the case. Otero, former Duke Blue Devil, won't be happy to get back to his phone and see the result of their game tonight.
When he was in the pen, do you think he had his phone down there checking the score?
I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I would go with yes.
Yeah.
Spring training maybe a little more liberal on checking the March Madness scores.
Will you just put it in your pocket?
Yeah, you might have it in the little bag that carries the different paraphernalia that you need down there in the bullpen, like the sunflower seeds. Somebody might throw their phone in there to make sure they know that that Duke lost to Oregon 82-68.
Bunch of blowouts tonight.
Committee got it right. Both 1-2s, 1-2s.
Shock.
Blew everybody out.
Here is a 1-2. And a ground ball up along third. Medina won't have a play on it. A.J. Ellis legs out at infield single.
It might be the one and only time this year you say that. Take it, though. Ball actually started behind home plate, off the point of home plate, dirt. Top spin forward.
Hopefully the truck was rolling on it. We can take audio of me saying it and give it to A.J.
Oh, yeah. You could tweet it out.
Yeah. Charlie Culberson. Producer Mike Levy says in our ears, we don't record your audio.
It's not very nice.
In fact, I wonder if our audio is even on television. Like, are they actually broadcasting our audio with their pictures? They have Alana's audio, Mike tells us.
Yes, because she's interviewing players.
Yeah.
We might be closed caption.
That's what I'm wondering. Closed circuit.
Yeah.
Otero looking sharp.
We could see when he had his 2 good years what type of pitches came out of his arm. When he gets his arm up a little bit, good hand discipline. That ball's got a tendency to bite, and he's got better location. You see the arm angle there, driving that ball slightly down as it comes out of his hand. The ones that kind of drops his elbow and comes underneath, they're flat and up.
Elian Herrera shoots one to left for a base hit. His first knock of the night. The Dodgers will bring the tying run to the plate here in the 8th inning in the form of Trace Thompson, who has swung it well so far tonight.
Nice job by Herrera right there, knowing his tool set and what the pitcher's trying to do with that two-seam fastball. Just dropping the barrel and hitting it to left. Won't try and do too much with it.
For Trace, a ground out to third, an RBI double, a single with a run scored. It has looked good doing it.
If I'm Trace, I'm looking for that two-seam fastball slightly elevated, working its way back towards the inner half of the plate, and I'm going to turn on it and hit it down the left field line for a home run. Right there.
Solid contact up the middle, and they get the force out at second. Castillo to Martinez. Otero with a scoreless inning aboard. Dodgers ace Clayton Kershaw got the ball tonight, gave up 2 runs. It's now 5-2. Earlier today, Alana Rizzo talked with Andrew Friedman about the back end of the rotation, the way injuries are impacting it, what we might be looking at.
We're having a lot of conversations with other teams as, you know, that time of the year. But to the extent that we stay internal, you know, with Zach Lee, Carlos Frias, and Ross Stripling are the guys that, you know, we're most actively discussing and talking about right now. You know, the tricky part is obviously we have a lot of really talented youngsters even behind those guys coming, and then we're going to get a lot of pitching back, you know, in May, June, July, and so it's just balancing all of that. But when we get to the point of having too much pitching, that'll be a good problem to have.
Yeah, this is a situation where they're having to go into their depth early, and even just to break camp with a 5th starter. And so interesting to hear Ross Stripling's name mentioned now.
Yeah.
As Zach Lee was in the hunt early on, and you know, Urias came into camp thinking maybe I got a chance to break camp, but he's shown he needs a little bit more finishing, and we shall see. With Carlos Frias, he was going to be more the swing guy and somebody maybe who wouldn't make the roster, somebody you'd want to stretch out AAA in case there was a problem in the rotation or a needing of a long man. But now all of a sudden he's got a shot to maybe take that 5th spot. So the abdominal pull of Mike Bolsinger has, you know, extended the thinking of the Dodgers now. Andrew Friedman and Farhan Zaidi, just to figure out how to break with 5 starters that can give the Dodgers a chance to win every game.
Chris Hatcher is in now, behind 2-1 on Bradley Zimmer. No questions about Hatcher's place on the roster. He'll be in a setup role for Kenley Jansen. Really, there are at this point, would you say, 4 locks in the bullpen? I'm looking through the list here. Jansen, Hatcher, Blanton, Howell. Lewis Coleman making a case to be a lock. He's out of minor league options in the way that he's pitching.
I think Luis Avilan is going to be a lock.
Okay. That is a sharp base hit for Zimmer. Tries to turn it into a double and does, flying into second.
There's almost like 9 locks, and but you probably only have 8 spots.
Right.
And maybe the right-handers. Take a look at these guys. Of course, Kenley Jansen and Carlos Frias might slip over into the rotation. Pedro Baez and Chris Hatcher are really near the top as far as the right-handers that are going to be there. And Joe Blanton looking more like the long guy. Yimi Garcia and Lewis Coleman probably battling out a little bit head-to-head there.
So if we say that Coleman and Avilan are close to locks, right? Do you agree with that?
I don't know if Coleman is yet. Okay. I don't know if, you know, where you can put the lock rate yet. I think the top 2 on that list are locks as far as the lefties. Avilan and J.P. Howell.
Well, that'd be roughly 5 locks, not including Coleman, who, again, the key thing there is that he's out of minor league options and signed a big league deal. So if you do toss him into the mix, that gives you 6. You have 1 spot left for Yimi Garcia, Pedro Baez, Jamie Wright.
Yeah, there's going to that list is going to be an interesting list.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to make a call because I think there's still some competition to go, and who knows if there's going to be a move made. You know, like Andrew said in his interview with Alana, that this is the time of year that you're talking to everybody. All the clubs are having roster configuration issues. Spring training invitee guys that come in and have shown well that you want to keep, that like a Lewis Coleman, but doesn't have options. But you weren't planning on him maybe pitching that well, or maybe you were and hoping, and you were hoping to have this problem, and now you've got it. So you can go from roster issues of trying to fit everybody on the club to all of a sudden you can make a trade because there's a need somewhere else.
Lonnie Chisenhall, 1 for 21 this spring. Takes a whistling fastball for a strike.
When I became a New York Met, I became a New York Met out of a Cleveland Indian camp because I had an opt-out. John Hart, the general manager of the Indians at the time, let me come to camp and get in shape, and he didn't need a 5th starter.
And he said, but we might need a 6th start, Oral, if we have an issue. How long will you be in our camp before I need to give you the opt-out? And it was right around right now. And I opted out the last week of spring training and went and pitched for the Mets the last week of spring training and made their rotation. So we don't have any opt-outs here, but those are part of the deal too, with guys that are big league ready and are going to get a big league job, but not sure you're going to get it with the club you're in camp with.
Yeah, and as close as the regular season seems at this point, you know, a week from Monday is opening day, there's still a lot to shake out here in spring.
Mm-hmm.
Chisenhall lines one on a bounce to first, second, and comes home, and they get the out.
Even with the new rules around home plate to protect the catchers and the base runners, that's still an exciting play. You get the infield in, a ground ball to first. Good feed from Seguin and A.J. Ellis giving him a corner of the plate there, reaching around with the tag. No contact other than the glove touching the shoulder for the out. That could easily have been a precarious place for A.J. without the new rules. Somebody's going to come in there and try and knock the ball loose, run you over, all kinds of things that they're protecting the catchers from right there.
And it's worked, and that there have been no serious injuries as a result of collisions that wouldn't have happened otherwise. As Aguilar shatters his bat, and the toss from Culberson retires him to finish the 8th. Last call for the Dodgers, down 5-2. Indians lead the Dodgers 5-2. We go to the 9th inning. Dodgers Spring Training Baseball is live with the MLB.com at Bat app. You can stay connected all spring. Radio broadcasts, video highlights, stats, news, and plenty more. Download MLB.com at Bat, the #1 app for live baseball on your smartphone and tablet. Another inning of work for Dan Otero. And he faces Rico Noel. Strike one. Dodgers back on the air tomorrow night. Vin Scully will be on the call as the Dodgers take on the Giants.
And we need to savor every last game that he does. Thank you, sir, for a most amazing career, and we will savor every moment of it this year.
Started calling games in 1950 when the team was in Brooklyn. Entering his 67th year as the greatest ever to do it and the greatest there ever will be. And if he happened to be listening right there, you know he'd be blushing to no end and hating that we're saying that.
That's for sure. And there's now Vin Scully Way headed into Dodger Stadium.
Well, fouls that one off his foot, and it stays at 2-2. Indians got single runs tonight in the first and the second. They added 3 in the 6th inning. Dodgers getting single runs in the 5th and in the 7th. They got a run on an RBI double from Trace Thompson, and then they got one on a double from Puig. Noel takes ball 4 on a leadoff walk.
Dodgers have built a few innings. They just haven't been able to really put a crooked number up there on the board. A couple of tin soldiers to give us a 5-2 deficit.
Here's Ahart. Strike 1. So Dodgers Giants tomorrow. And you and I and Alon will be back on Saturday. Dodgers White Sox again at Camelback Ranch. There's a base hit for Ahart. The Dodgers stringing something together here in the 9th, down 5-2. Rob Segedin, who has 4 home runs this spring, comes up representing the tying run.
Let's go for Cinco de March. Get one.
Segedin had a really impressive walk his first time up, replacing Justin Turner in the 7th against Brian Shaw. Worked a really nice at-bat. And bats here representing the tying run in the 9th inning. 2-0. Carlos Frias tomorrow night for the Dodgers. And an extra interesting audition for that 5 spot, because he'll be facing the team that he would make his first start against this season. Segedin into the right field corner for extra bases. Noel will score. Ahart holds it third on a Segedin double, and the Dodgers have the tying run in scoring position with nobody out in the 9th.
Well, now with 2 productive outs after this great double down the line, you can tie this game up with just outs. The hard work has been done. Now you play situational baseball, get a ground ball to the right side and a fly ball to the outfield. You got a tie game.
Mike Ahmed comes up.
Mike Ahmed, and you're a minor league player, you can go ahead and swing it, or you can do a push bunt to first base right here.
Yeah. Native of Springfield, Massachusetts. Mike Ahmed. 1 ball and 1 strike. Went to the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. One from Dan Otero. 1-2. Walk from Noel, single from Ahart, double from Segedin. Tying run in scoring position for the Dodgers with nobody out in the 9th inning. Trying to snap this 7-game spring skid. 1-2. Missed somewhere.
The last high strike we saw called was on Scott Van Slyke, who's in the on-deck circle, and that one was right around the same height, but Scott's a little taller.
In the air to center. Zimmer steadies under it. Runners will advance. And Zimmer's throws cut off, and it's a 5-4 game.
Nice job, young man. Put yourself in a 2-strike hole and then get the job done. High fives all around.
How about this crowd here at the Indians facility? Staying in it late. Rooting the Dodgers from behind. They now have the tying run 90 feet away, and Scott Van Slyke coming up.
Dodgers, one of the best drawing teams in the Cactus League. Sometimes hard to get a ticket. The game tomorrow night with the Giants is sold out. Somebody came over, Dodger fans coming over here, watching them play the Indians.
Infield comes in for Cleveland. Van Slyke swings and misses.
That again was when we see big league hitters that look kind of stupid or a silly swing. It's cheating on a fastball. Just happened to be a breaking ball. You'd rather swing and miss than hit some weak ground ball.
Bounce to third. Coming home is Sagan, and it's foul.
Play
by Medina.
Really smart play down there. No chance to get Sagan because it was a chopper and he's going on contact, and then let's just decide to see if this ball will go foul, and it does.
Wow.
Really heady play.
It's the kind of play that as a minor leaguer will have your name stick with some of those big league coaches and manager Tito Francona in that dugout. 0-2 now. They set outside. And Otero misses upstairs with ball one. A double in the second, a walk in the fourth. Since then he's flied out and struck out. Tying run at third with one away in the 9th and a 1-2.
Well, if you're on the mound, you're thinking double play candidate on deck. Tying run at third. I'm not going to give in. I'd rather push for the strikeout and risk the walk than give in.
And after looking a bit foolish, guessing fastball and swinging over a breaking ball to begin the at-bat, he's worked it full.
Take a shot on the first pitch, now build the at-bat, and he built it right back into a full count.
3-2. Moore couldn't hang on.
Sinker in and watch the top of your feet on that one. This does not feel good. Very little fat on toes.
Another 3-2 pitch. Inside, ball four. And Slyke with a heck of an at-bat. And they're at the corners for A.J. Ellis.
Well, A.J.'s got to have a short memory, because he's had a couple of bats here tonight where he's tried to move runners over or get him in from third that he hasn't gotten the job done. Well, now he's got a chance to tie this game. Mickey Callaway out with a little visit out to his pitcher, making sure the pitch count's okay, and he feels good. We're going to stick with him. But A.J. Ellis with that infield single down to third base earlier, and a couple other at-bats where he wished he was able to drive the ball to the outfield, and here he's got a chance to do it again.
The minor leaguers have got this inning going. Noel with a walk. Ahart with a single. Seguin with a double. Ahmed with a sacrifice fly. The big leaguers trying to keep it going and cap it off. Ellis bunts. The squeeze play will tie the game. A.J. Ellis executes the squeeze. Seguin scores, and it's 5-5 in the ninth.
Dave Roberts had the right pieces right there with A.J. Ellis. He won't miss that sign. Also, not afraid to sacrifice his ego, and let's try and tie up the spring training game. Get some chemistry going in the clubhouse. Got a little wry smile there from A.J. Clayton Kershaw spits the hook.
And now Charlie Culberson with a go-ahead run in scoring position. Strike one. Strikeout in his only at bat. Replace Kike Hernandez defensively in the seventh.
Don't play a lot of extra innings in spring training baseball, but we will now have a bottom of the ninth.
Blows that one by Culberson for strike three in the second out of the ninth. And up comes Elian Herrera. Out comes Terry Francona. 44 pitches deep is Otero. The Indians make a change in a 5-5 game with a go-ahead run in scoring position for the Dodgers. They've scored 3 here in the ninth to tie it. Jared Grube on to try and get out of this ninth inning with no more damage. Dodgers have scored 3 runs to tie it at 5. Elian Herrera with a chance to put the Dodgers in front with runners at first and second. Van Slyke, the runner at second. Ellis, the runner at first, has tied it with a squeeze here in the ninth inning. Does a tie snap the losing streak?
Kinda.
Yeah. I think technically it does.
Kind of like kissing your sister.
Yeah, that's what my JV football coach used to say. Ironically, that JV football coach's name, swear to God, was Dave Roberts.
Really?
Yeah.
And you were a QB?
Yep.
Running offense or? passing off.
Not when your dad's the coach and you're the quarterback.
Oh. That Dave Roberts has a running offense.
Yeah. Boog finds his zone. 3-1 on Herrera. Let's see if he can get his second base hit of the night and put the Dodgers in front.
I'm real surprised they're paying any attention out there to Scott Van Slyke. Herrera can slap the ball to left. The shortstop's paying attention there. I'd be back on the outfield grass knocking the ball down.
Herrera flips one to left. Ison coming on will get there. And the inning is over. The Dodgers rally for 3 down to their final at bat. On to the bottom of the ninth.
Ready for number.
A.J. Ellis with the squeeze ties the game. It is our Lexus play of the game.
Don't square around too early. Make sure you then get a strike. But even if you don't get a strike, you got to get it down. A.J. got a little breaking ball in the outer half. Got the barrel in the right spot. Squeezed the tying run home.
The 9th inning of a spring training game. I mean, spring training is for working on things.
Exactly. No, you got to go through the whole sequence of signs. Dave Roberts got to get it out to third base. Third base got to get it into A.J. It's all good.
So to the bottom of the 9th inning, and it's Scott Barlow pitching for the Dodgers. The minor leagues last year. Those are the numbers.
Almost a strikeout an inning.
The ground out to first. Seguin takes it to the back.
Maybe a few too many walks. About one every other inning. He's going to be working on that. But it's a big arm with a nice pitcher's body. Throws the ball good, and he can really spin it.
Here's Medina. Against Barlow, former 6th round pick out of Golden Valley High School, which is in the same town that Indian starter tonight Trevor Bauer was born in, Santa Clarita, California. The 1-0. It's a strike. Drafted in 2011. Made it as high as AAA Oklahoma City for a game last year. Medina barely gets a piece to stay alive. Again, Carlos Frias tomorrow. And what will be an audition for that 5 spot against the team that he would make his first start of the year against. And that's extra significant because there is some hope, you would think, that it may not need to be more than 1 or 2 starts from somebody other than Mike Bolsinger in that 5 spot.
Yeah, you look at the 5 spot and it can be a bunch of different guys. It doesn't always have to be the same candidate. You'd like it to be the same guy, but with the ability to move the roster around as the year goes on, you're going to need somebody to lead us off. But after that, you can make some changes.
Adam Moore. All that stands between this game and either extras or a tie. Indians do play tomorrow afternoon. You wouldn't think they'd want this thing to keep going too much later. Moore corks one in the air to right that Ahart runs under and finishes the 9th inning. Does it finish the game? We're checking body language. Wait for it.
I think we're done, Joe. I saw a wave from one dugout to the other.
I think we're good to go. You're right. It's going to end in a 5-5 tie.
It's better than a loss.
Yeah, what was the, I don't remember exactly what the game was, but there was a headline at some point in college football that said so-and-so win by a tie, you know? So the headline here would be Dodgers win 5-5,
okay.
Right? By getting the 3 runs in the 9th inning.
I'm all in on that one.
Then the squeeze play to snap that 7-game losing streak. Take on the Giants tomorrow. Access Sportsnet gets it started at 6:30. First pitch with Vin Scully at 7. For now, stay tuned for Access Sportsnet Dodgers postgame.